the east side of India. It's a small country.
Right.
It used to be East Pakistan. Then there was a war for its liberation, and then it was declared as Bangladesh. So on the west we have Pakistan, on the east we have Bangladesh, and it's kind of similar.
Huh.
So there have been tensions there. The regime was toppled recently during civil war. There have been similar stuff happening there before as well. But yeah, so that's how things have been. So we have been also deporting Bangladeshis and like literally like demolishing entire neighborhoods because we found there to be illegal immigrants. So it's like US, but except we just go and we just literally demolish all the housing, arrest everyone, and send them back.
Wow. I mean, I've seen like some ICE raids in the U.S. Be really intense, but nothing like coming in and destroying an encampment.
Yeah, you can't do much here. The police won't like think about your rights. They'll just beat you with a stick until you get in the van. There's not really much you can do there.
Yeah, I guess so. In any case, before we continue, so we're live. Whoops,
Nice.
that's my microphone settings.
Is it still the same link? Do I post it?
Yeah, same link. Yeah, you can post it by all means.
So,
Why is my mic software so shit? Oh my
wait, it's still
goodness.
the Jeffrey Epstein thumbnail.
Yeah,
This should be
I
fun.
haven't changed it. It's fine. It's
That's fine. It's nice. Yeah.
yeah, I used it as clickbait, but yeah. So we're back. Haven't done one of these interviews in a very very long time. Thank you for making time today, Krutik. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But what brings us back is the seemingly forgotten conflict that's been brewing for like decades with India and Pakistan. I remember when I first heard of the terrorist attack and I read the actual details of it. Um, it seemed like, I mean, I don't know what the like machinations behind the scenes are and the people in power, but it really did seem like this was a push to aggravate tensions and hope for some kind of reaction and goad either side into like a conflict. Like they just sent people into this valley city and just massacred like people that were on vacation. Just came from like the trees from what I read, right?
Yes. So that has been the case. Now, obviously, India and Pakistan have a very long history ever since independence of India, and then Pakistan was separated into a different country. Since then, there have been tensions. There have been several wars, like every single one of which we have won. But there have been obviously a lot of losses in terms of life, land, everything, everything. And these terror attacks, they have been continuing. They target civilians, tourists. They target military posts. There have been cases where there have been large scale attacks where tens, sometimes hundreds of soldiers have died. Um, like for example, we had a Pulwama in the Pulwama region. We had a bus of the Central Reserve Police Force blown up by a suicide bomber. Like I guess 40 or so soldiers died. Before that, like military camps were attacked by terrorists. And so what happens usually is these terror groups, they do these attacks and claim responsibility. We usually get evidence that it's the Pakistani military that is behind them, using them as a proxy for their own stuff. Um, the Pahalgam attack was quite severe, and it was also considered to be a message from them. The reason being, there's an opening in the tourist spot, and from the trees, a bunch of terrorists came down. They killed, I guess, 20, 30 people. All of them were civilians, so they went to the folks. They would uh, hold them at gunpoint and ask them, "Hey, what's your religion?" and recite kalma. Kalma is like an Islamic prayer. If you're not able to do that, we shoot you. And like we leave the women and kids so that they can go back and tell people, like, "Hey, this is what happened." Like they asked our religion and they killed our men. And one of them one of them, uh, one of the terrorists told someone, "Hey, go tell Modi we did this." So this was obviously an attempt to really send a message that they are not, getting back. So we have been very, I would, this is my personal opinion. We've been very tolerant, even with the surgical strike and all that air strikes that We have done. We have been very tolerant, and I don't think there has been any government that's been able to give a response that we as civilians would be happy with. Because, to be frank, at this point, there is no concession. It is my belief that India has to take over Pakistan. That's just, unfortunately, that's the reality. There has to be a regime change. There has to be more sensible folks in charge of that country. Otherwise, this is going to keep happening. We keep finding evidence of the Pakistani military forces training terror groups in that region and then sending them across the border to infiltrate India. And like, this has been continuing for decades and decades. So we are pretty pissed off at that, and we have been trying to get the public attention, but at this point we are tired of the West only intervening when it's beneficial for them, otherwise just letting things be. And so that's how it has been. And the terrorist attack was definitely something that, you know despite your political affiliations, like, there was very little division in public opinion of whether there should be a response or not. It's largely agreed upon that, yes, there should be a very strong response, and whatever airstrikes we did were not enough.
Yeah, that's a lot, because if I did read that the group that perpetrated the attack, right? What was it?
TRF probably, yeah, the resistant front, second paragraph.
Right. Um, that there are terrorist groups that the Pakistani government, much like how the Iranian government supports the Houthis, there are groups out there that they do support. Now, I feel like that's kind of par for the course for any nation that gets enough influence. I mean, America, famously enough, right, um, trained the regiment that Osama bin Laden was part of. Um, I don't know if there's some kind of irony there, but I'm wondering, do you think that India also does that to an extent? And I'm not trying to like play devil's
Sponsoring.
advocate here. I'm just asking out of curiosity.
Uh, Actually, if you look at the entire history, India has literally, there's not even single incident where India has invaded a country. Um, so, like, our policy, our foreign policy is, we mind our own business and we do what's best for our country. That's it. Like, we don't go and seek power across the globe. We are happy where we are. And in terms of using these proxies to fight wars, we don't do that because we don't have wars to be fought anywhere else. Like, this is where we are. This is our problems are pretty clear. They are in the open. They just need to be dealt with, and for that requires, to an extent, a lot of diplomatic support from across the globe. And but to a larger extent, it requires just a sense of, effort. We don't care, we're going to do what we need to do from the upper echelon of the leadership. So those are the things. I mean, we there's no you won't be able to find any terror groups being funded by secretly by Indian forces. That's for sure. There have been incidences where, so there's this separatist group called Khalistan. They are based. Most of them are based out of Canada.
Oh yeah,
They,
I'm well aware.
yeah, they,
I'm well aware of these people. These fucking
yeah,
unbelievable. We just had the anniversary of the Air India airliner going down,
yeah.
where like a bunch of Canadians died, and some of the people that are linked to that act are still in my fucking country. It's insane. It's crazy. I don't understand how we can tolerate this. Like, anyway, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So we've tried diplomatic solutions, but the problem is, so I haven't read up on the new Prime Minister of Canada, but I remember from the Trudeau government, we didn't have a lot of success with diplomatic solutions to that. because we obviously wanted those people extradited so we can punish them here in India.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happened is some so this is in the defense community. If in the defense Twitter community, we call them quote unquote unknown gunmen. So it is
Mm-hmm.
alleged that the Indian foreign arm of intelligence, it's called a research and analysis wing. It's like the CIA equivalent of US
Mm-hmm.
for India. They have been involved in killing these terrorists across borders. But there's like that's just, I think it's more propped up than it is reality. So these folks, they tend to die by unknown gunmen. But what happens usually is, for example, in Pakistan, a lot of soldiers are killed near the Balochistan region,
Mm-hmm.
and Pakistan keeps claiming that, hey, Indian intelligence or military, keeps funding these people who come and kill us. But it's not the case. It's just that Balochistan wants to be independent, and Pakistan has been occupying their land for a long time, and they are now just revolting. So it's just those folks going and killing Pakistani soldiers, and then the blame comes on India. Actually, we don't care. We just know Balochistan region is waiting for independence. Yeah, so the left on the left, it should be there. Wait, it'll show you under Pakistan, so it won't show you like an actual region.
Yeah, well, I know I see like because this is wait, this isn't the entirety of because this includes Pakistan, like Karachi and all that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So this would be the that region. It isolated it if you
All
can
right.
see the red
Yeah, sorry,
line
my
there.
screen
Yeah,
was loading. Yeah, it's proper. All right.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
see
Yeah.
it. So
That's a
so
big
there's
region.
Balochistan,
Wow.
there's Sindh. There's so it's all covered by Pakistan. And if you go on the north, so like upwards and right, you see Jammu and Kashmir.
Mm-hmm.
So there are on the top there are disputed borders because that's called Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir because they invaded and occupied that land.
Hmm.
Yeah, so what we were hoping for as citizens is that uh, this being the final straw that breaks the camel's back, and we finally go and take back POK, meaning Pakistan occupied Kashmir, because we've been wanting that back for a while now. Like we have been very tolerant of that. We should just, it's our belief that even the former generals and all these folks, you see their interviews, they are just saying, hey, military is very much capable of doing that and accomplishing it with the minimum amount of casualties. It's just that we need the orders and we haven't gotten those orders. So obviously there's a lot of international pressure and that kind of stuff happening. But I think there will come a time when it will be taken back. That's for sure.
Yeah, and while you were talking there, I looked it up just to see a comparison in terms of like the groups they kind of support. And while AI is not 100% perfect, I would at least have liked to seen like a single example, and it didn't really list anything because like here it says in terms of a comparative analysis, in terms of how they support foreign or terrorist groups, there's already been multiple confirmed cases with admissions by Pakistani leadership, international recognition, and extensive documentation by credible sources that this is actually the case. Meanwhile, for India, it's primarily based on Pakistani allegations with limited independent verification. Now, to what extent that's like willful ignorance and people just aren't looking, or if this is actually the case, because like I said, I have no background in this. I have no idea. Like I'm just talking to you to inform myself about the issue, but it's kind of leaning towards one way. It's kind of just
It
leaning
is.
towards one
Yes.
country.
It has been, so I don't know what you think of the Israel Palestine conflict, but like you see
Oh
the
boy.
footage of like people, yeah, you see the footage of people parachuting in and killing a bunch of folks who are just dancing to music. You can tell, like, okay, that's a terrorist attack. All right, that's like you saw Russia Ukraine invasion, right? Russian
Yeah.
forces were driving tanks through the cities, and the population, like the civilians, were just protesting on the sidewalks. Like you'll see a grandma with groceries in her hand, and she's just shouting at the tanks. They're not killing them, but if you see the Israel and Hamas footage, like the Hamas terrorists coming in, you clearly see like they're just gunning down civilians. If you look at the footage of the Pahalgam attack, you can just tell it's pretty obvious. Like this is not a military action; this is a terrorist attack. And yeah, but I mean, so I don't care how the media portrays it. We know the truth, and like no amount of psyops can change the history because we know where we are at. We know what we are, and the best thing about being an Indian soldier for our army is that we fight on our own land, and we know what we are fighting for. We are not in the business of invading countries. We just want to defend our own motherland and get back the land that has been taken from us, and and free the people who are there and like protesting every single day, asking for independence. Asking to join India.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I mean, with the Israel Gaza conflict, I've gone back and forth on it, and look, I don't have a hot take. I am ignorant to that region as well, so I'm not going to pretend that I know at all what's going on, who's in the right and who's in the wrong. There's a barbaric attack, but even before that, they both sides have been in conflict and subjugating one another and taking advantage of like foreign investments. Like I saw an image of like a trench. It was a trench that some like Hamas soldiers had set up, and for like if you see like World War I trenches, there's usually all these different like sandbags that they put on the side
Yeah.
to keep the water out, right? So let me see here. Yeah, I guess that. Yeah. And on one of the bags in the trench of the Hamas fighters, there was like a little tag that was essentially one of these like foreign aid organizations. So so
Yeah,
they were
like probably
effectively
UNRW.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like UN or like Japan or something. I think it was like Japanese for some reason, but I saw this label and I was like, oh, so they're part of this conflict, part of like one of the million shades of gray that you have to know to understand this thing. Um, is that they are effectively using foreign aid to support terrorist activity because the political party that looks over that region uh, is is a terrorist organization, and so they're going to do whatever it takes. Like they built all these extensive tunnels, and they specifically build bases in like hospitals and civilian areas. And then on the other side, I see like all the stuff that Israel is doing, and I'm just like, that shit looks cruel as hell. Um, it seems like a major like reaction. Like I mean, people forget like those pager bombs that went off. Like how crazy was that? Oh my god,
I mean,
that was some
yeah,
crazy shit.
that went away so far. I mean, yeah, there were memes for a while, but like, as someone who is interested in like covert operations and all this, that has to be like in the one of the coolest operations in like the century, probably. Like how,
Yeah,
like imagine just planting small explosives that can be triggered remotely into devices, setting up a company, advertising that company, getting the contract, and actually supplying that, and like not those. I don't. How could they just not do the QA? Like before sending. I know it's a terrorist organization; they probably don't care. But like, even if I were running a terrorist organization, I have a feeling like I'd want to see what's coming in from outside. Like I don't know how they were able to get it so deep and into the hands of like actual terrorists, and then just blow them off. There was CCTV footages of like these terrorists in stores
yeah,
shopping, and
yeah,
then there's some smoke coming out, and the guy takes out the pager and just blows up. It's pretty crazy.
yeah.
Hmm.
Like that was insane. And then what's also been crazy here in the West is like the reaction to anybody that like outwardly like criticizes the conflict. And look, like I said, I'm not on either side. I have no dog in this fight. I don't know the actual like scale of this over hundreds of years. I don't understand it, right? But it's very strange how in the West here, like we try to champion, the rights of freedom of speech and whatnot, but people have just
Hmm.
been straight up like getting arrested and deported because they don't support like the conflict. Now, there's something to be said about like inciting protests or like encampments or violence against like Jewish people and all that. Like, okay, that obviously like breaches a line. But anybody that's even saying like, hey, maybe the U.S. shouldn't be sending hundreds of millions of dollars to pay for the Iron Dome. Like we got homeless in the streets. Like we have veterans that we're not taking care of. Like there's a lot of these things that we could be funding instead. Meanwhile, like APAC, the lobbying organization, has every single congressperson on speed dial. Like every single congressperson that gets elected apparently has an APAC liaison attached to them immediately and has them in their phone on speed dial. Um, that's like that's just weird. I mean, like, what other country has that much influence over another politically? I can't really like. Do you just happen to have a lot of Chinese people that also lobby for Indian interests as well, like attached to themselves
I
to
mean,
every politician? It's a little weird.
yeah, I hope not. I mean, yeah, there have been cases where um, uh, left-wing parties from US or uh, some China-related stuff funding protests against certain laws in India. So that has been there, but like not to the crazy extent where US and all these countries have their politicians, being influenced.
Well, have you seen this? Have you like, because there's always like a weird photo every now and
Oh
then
yes,
that's gonna pop up,
yes.
but there's a compilation for anyone that hasn't seen this. World leaders, celebrities, people that are in
Yeah, okay,
culture.
but here's all right. So here's my argument against this. Not against this, I guess, but so here's my take on this. Like, so let's. So there's two arguments. So one is the conspiracy theory saying the Jews are behind it. The quote
Yeah, on the
unquote
extreme.
Jews are
Yeah,
behind
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah. So they are secretly controlling everybody. What I would like to see. So if you come to India, there are certain places that you're going to visit, right? There's places related to Mahatma Gandhi or any kind of influential
Taj
figure.
Mahal.
There's
Yeah.
temples. Yeah, exactly. So now we have this new temple. After a long court battle, we were finally able to get the land. So there's this contested site. The area is called Ayodhya. It's the Ram Mandir. So Ram is like Lord Ram is the name
Hmm.
of the deity, and the temple, it's on a contested side. The Islam side of people said, hey, we have a masjid here, a mosque here. And the Hindu argument was that before that, many centuries before that, was the original temple, because this is the birthplace of that god, because he was born in this place and this is where his temple was, and it was demolished by the Mughal invaders, the Islam invaders, and a mosque was created here. So the court gave separate land in that region to for the mosque and for the temple. Now finally we have, after a long time, we have the temple rebuilt. So now I guess if you were an influential political figure coming in that region, wouldn't you want to go there and visit along with the state prime, chief minister or something? And just, if you go to a temple, the standard thing would be to bow down, fold your hands. Wouldn't you do that? So the question then becomes like, is it just a reasonable thing to do is just go and pay respects to whatever country you are visiting, their culture and tradition. Like if a political figure is visiting US, I'm sure they'll visit whatever the big thing is in that state, along with the local political figures. So how much is it just that, and how much is it it's actually the Jews so showing that, hey, everybody has to be submissive in front of us or something like that.
Yeah, no, certainly. I'm right there with you because you can't go if you go all the way like, oh, it's the Jews, then yeah, you've lost the plot. You might as well be saying it's the like it's whatever. It's the immigrants, it's the Mexicans. It's like blaming an entire group of people. You completely just lose out on any semblance of an argument. So I'm right there with you. It's just it makes me think twice about like why is it that these interests are so intertwined that countries seem to be acting in this lockstep like this war in Ukraine, right? Having like lived in Russia for a time and having grown up in that culture as a Russian, the whole thing just seems so strange to me because like there was a known coup that happened in 20 what was it 2014 or 2012.
The Wagner Group guy.
No, 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 no. So there was a Ukraine coup in let me see here. Yeah, it was called the Revolution of Dignity. Sure, in 2014.
Okay.
Um, essentially, what had happened, from my understanding, is the president that was elected, that was a pro-Russian president. that was basically like, look, we don't want to deal with the West to the point where it angers the Russians because they can invade us at any moment, and the U.S. is not going to put troops on the ground. Um, so there's really no point in going further. And then also, there's a famous memo between like a Soviet, some kind of Soviet general, like a diplomat, that basically said, like, look, this is our red line. Like, Ukraine cannot go
Mm.
into NATO. We cannot have that because then you are on our border, and that's a fucking problem. And so when Russia set this red line, the agreement with NATO was okay, not more, like not one more country. And then year after year, another country got added. Now, I'm not saying all of this justifies Russia's response. I'm just saying, like, this is the timeline, right? This is what happened. And it got to a point where the US was involved in this coup in 2014. Like, there was leaked audio by Julian Assange, Ukraine 2014 leaked audio. Let me find it here. Yeah, Chris, Victoria Nuland, who was the Assistant Secretary of State, was caught on a call essentially discussing what was going to happen with Ukraine, where they were basically telling, like, oh, fuck whatever the EU wants. We're going to push our interests, America's interests.
Mm.
And this was like a huge scandal at the time. I'm pretty sure it was leaked by WikiLeaks or the Russian state. I forget who. Um, but it essentially showed that, like, oh, the US has a vested interest in this. Like, there were leaders going around, US leaders going around to these protesters and handing out like sandwiches. Like, uh,
Crazy.
I mean, if you're not, if that doesn't show that you support one side, like that, come on, like that's clear as day. And then, the further stuff comes out that that US is actively supporting the coup because they don't want the pro-Russia president in Ukraine. And I think that whole situation just, like, it peaked at a point where Putin was like, okay, we told you for decades, don't do this, and you did it instead, and you're still doing it. So we're going to put a red line because the thing with Russia is their population has been declining greatly, like every other nation. And I heard from like a statistician that basically said the year that Russia invaded, that was the only year that they could have started that kind of operation until their numbers were like, getting dangerously depleted. Like, that's why they've
Oh,
opened up
okay.
the prisons because they're running out of men. World War II had something to do with it. They wiped out a third of their men as a result of it. Um, Sorry, I'm kind of rambling here, but anyways, my point is, uh, it's weird how some of these countries have associations or deep passion for like pushing this conflict. Like, the West is so keen on Ukraine. Like, Canada's sending like hundreds of millions. US has sent like billions. And for what? None of the lines have changed for like months. It's so strange, I don't get it.
And if you look at, like, we have it, so all these points, and then we still haven't gotten into the whole military industrial complex argument. Like,
Yeah.
that's a whole different beast in itself. And the way they have aligned incentives with these congress people in us, it's crazy. I mean, to be honest, like, on a dark side, I wish that was the case in India. Like, we have a lot of public sector undertakings of these companies that build large fighter jets and stuff. Like, the defense twitter is in India is going crazy for, like, a lot of privatization and building of stuff, because India has this problem of, like, for example, there's this one jet engine that has not been delivered and delayed, kept getting delayed by the US for years.
Mm.
And we've been lobbying, like, the defense twitter literally decided one day to trend this hashtag called fund Kaveri engine. Kaveri is name of a river, but it's also name of an engine that is being built for fifth generation fighter jets in India. And that would be probably the first time India has its own indigenously built fighter jet, because it's obviously very complex to build and manufacture fighter jets. So we just one account, they just decided that, hey, we're going to trend this fund Kaveri engine hashtag, and they started commenting about that under every single official government account post that was happening. Like, within 24 hours, it had, like, almost more than a million posts, probably less than that, somewhere in that region, but like hundreds of thousands of posts. Like, everybody picked on it, and soon you saw it happening in, like, traditional media, they were discussing it, and like within a few days, the Minister of Home in one of his speech mentioned like, hey, we are going to fund this project. So that was
Wow.
probably the first time the world has ever seen a military, a defense tech project being funded because of Twitter lobbying. Like we just pretty much wielded that into existence by posting memes on like the government has to fund this engine. There are people posting anime waifus saying, "Hey, if the bureaucrats, if you're listening, if you if you get this project to be funded, we'll make sure you get these waifus." So like there was a bunch of crazy stuff happening. Although recently we heard that it might not be compatible, so they are deciding not to fund it. But still, it was pretty crazy that we got the attention of the highest leadership by just shit posting. And that was a crazy experience.
Wow. That's crazy. Well, that actually, well, that links to, what we wanted to discuss initially, with the result of the conflict, seeing as you work
Yeah.
in IT. So what happened immediately afterwards? Because from my understanding, it was kind of all hands on deck the moment that that happened. Like borders were shut down, everything was closed. Um, what did it look like for you?
So obviously, when the attack happened, now me and like I got to know it pretty early because I follow a bunch of OSINT accounts and that kind of stuff, and they usually get their information from like sources on the ground,
Mm-hmm.
so like police stations and that kind of stuff. But to the larger media, so these attacks are pretty, I wouldn't say pretty common, but they do happen once in a while. So first it hits, when it hits the traditional media, it's a news with very little information, something like a terrorist attack has happened in this region. So that's where it's, and it stays there. It doesn't become a big story. But soon the footage started emerging, and then people realized that this was not some random terrorist attack on a military outpost, which is very common, by the way, unfortunately. And then we fire back, and some are caught, some run away, and that's it. That's common. Soon the footage emerged of, you know, this couple that is like killed. So the guy is killed. Someone's on a honeymoon, the dude is killed, and the wife is just sitting next to his dead body and crying her eyes out. And like someone took a photo, and that went viral, and the footage emerged of people running, and then later a footage emerged of a guy who was ziplining and just recording himself, just a dude ziplining recording himself. Yeah, so that's the image, and that I was talking about, the one where she's crying next to the dead body. And then later this footage emerged where a guy was ziplining, and in the back, so he's filming himself smiling like a kid, and in the background people are being gunned down, literally gunned down by the terrorists. Like people are being hit with bullets and dying. So that was pretty crazy. But anyway, so once the news hit, people were quite outraged. Nobody knew what the actual extent was, but the evacuation happened pretty fast. Like within 30 minutes, the military forces were on the ground. But by then, obviously, it was too late. The terrorists had run away. Day or two later, we were able to gun down two of them. Yeah, so that stuff happened, and then there was a lot of public outrage on, this has to be responded with. Yeah, we can look at some footages. Yeah, just see if we can find some more. There'll be one where there's dead bodies. I don't know if we can actually go on YouTube live with that.
Yeah, there was a couple of bodies in the footage there. Oh,
Yeah, that's the
there's a guy.
ziplining guy.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is accused that the guy behind him is saying Allahu Akbar. He's actually saying Allahu Akbar, which he did not say. So let's just look at the footage first. Yeah. Mm, yeah, the audio won't be worth it. There's nothing on the audio, but yeah, see
Oh
on the
yeah,
right
you can now you
below.
can hear it. I heard the bullets.
There's yeah,
Oh
there's
my
people.
god.
Yeah, so it's literally
Oh
just
my.
working fast. See that guy slipped.
Oh,
Not
he
sure if he's hit
slipped.
or
Oh, I
not.
thought he got
Uh,
shot. Oh my
yeah.
god.
So this guy is not aware till now that there's a terrorist attack happening. So now go to the start of the footage and play the audio. You'll hear that guy saying Allahu Akbar.
That
Yeah, you know what that is?
that
I'll tell
looked
you
like
what
an
it is.
edit. That looked like an edit.
No, it's not an edit because the guy you see in the footage, he's from my state, and he gave interview in the local language of what had happened, and he said that he got confused for a second there because that guy didn't say Allahu Akbar three times before. So this guy who is on the zip line, before he went on, his whole family went one by one. His children, his wife. This guy didn't say anything then, but once the shooting started happening, you'll see him saying Allahu Akbar, and this is from his account, the guy who is on the zip line. Apparently, later, the National Investigation Agency, which is the anti terrorism agency of India, arrested a lot of locals who were actually in on the attack. So there are a lot of locals who are actually who want Kashmir to go into Pakistan and not in India. So they are working with the terrorists and all these groups to actually facilitate these attacks, and it's not new. This is very common. So apparently turns out that these guys who are in the footage and others, they probably were in on it, and once they saw the shots happening, uh, they just, you know, they knew that it was time.
Wow. That is one of the weird things about living in 2025 is that some of these world events that happen, they're just with the fact that everyone has a camera, there's going to be almost always somebody doing just something mundane, and then all of a sudden they just have footage of this. I mean, like this isn't comparative, but like another example that I can think of is when there was that explosion. I don't think it was Beirut. It was in some port town where like a shipping container full of some kind of
Oh yeah, it was
toxic
Beirut.
chemical.
Yeah,
Was
yeah,
it
yeah, it
Beirut?
was
Was it
Beirut.
actually?
Yeah, 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 yep. The whole shockwave and the footages from like a bunch of angles, like hundreds of
Yeah, yeah.
footages.
Yeah, the famous one was the wedding one where this
Oh
woman is
yes,
like
yes.
she has that dress, then all of a sudden the explosion happens and holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that blown out. Another one I can think of is there was that, I think it was the Myanmar coup
Oh yes,
where
the girl is doing Zumba on the break. Yep, I remember.
yeah,
That's
where
probably one of the funniest meme on the world. Yeah, that one.
yeah,
He's just
she's
doing Zumba and there's like a
just
coup happening in the background.
just doing a dance while these military trucks just pass by. It reminds me of this documentary filmmaker Adam Curtis, who he specializes in taking footage of like all these like events and tying these different narratives about how power works and how people are manipulated through psychological techniques. And it's not even like conspiracy theory. It's literally just like this is what advertising does to your mind. This is what
Hmm.
cultural narratives about your nation and how it was built and how it runs, how that affects your perspective, like all the wars that are fought. And he's very, very interesting character. I highly recommend like checking out his documentaries. He has so many of them. One of them, he literally just has footage of like from the Soviet archives of war, whether it's Afghanistan or elsewhere, just conflict, just playing like with no commentary or anything. It was really cool. But in any case, the original point, yeah, it's that zipline video is crazy, and the fact that you basically confirmed that there is a chance that he was in on the attack, and he just happened to be working there. I mean, I
And there's
guess
like
that's why it was targeted.
so the place, the Pahalgam is it's a tourist town. So most of Kashmir is like that. So it's a tourist town, and if there are no tourists, there's no economic movement. And so there were interviews on the same day of locals who run like tea stalls and small shops and that taxis or something, and they were literally laughing. They were saying, hey, there won't be any money for us because now no one's going to visit, and they're literally laughing in the videos. So I mean, if like 23 people were killed in my neighborhood and I was giving an interview, I'm pretty sure there's nothing that would make me laugh. Like there's no way like 3 4 people are laughing in the background. I mean, you know that Indian Airlines, the Air India crash, it literally
Hmm.
happened for like 15 minutes from my place, probably
Wow.
less. depending on traffic. Yeah, it's in my city, and it's like um, there's I know people who have worked, some who even still work in those buildings where the plane crashed. Like it was pretty close. I mean, I don't think I'd be laughing if I was giving an interview. So there's, I mean, I understand it would be difficult to believe from the perspective of someone who is not, very well aware of the history and what all things have happened here. But for us, like we know it very well. We know what's been happening. Action needs to be taken. We're just waiting for when.
Yeah,
The stupid
that's
U.S. intervention was BS. It was total BS. If it had not happened, if that had not happened, things would have been like the next 100 years. It would have been peace for India, especially on the Pakistan front.
yeah, that's also been interesting to see that the U.S. admit, like, I was kind of rooting for what was going to happen in America, but all this stuff with the foreign conflicts and just how they're making their decisions, it's very strange. Like, Canada is getting reamed, and our prime minister is not making any better. That has really caused some very odd things to happen here in Canada politically. But just staying on topic of the attack. So, in terms of your role and the kind of position that you hold, what did that time look for you guys like immediately after? What happened next?
Yeah, so just before that, I'll just quickly for the timeline. Next, what happened was once the attacks actually started from the Indian forces, uh, we had we did a bunch. It was called Operation Sindoor. Sindoor is the red powder a woman applies on her head. A married woman applies on her head in Hinduism. So in our culture, that's what's Sindoor. So Operation Sindoor is what it was named. We went and hit a bunch of their terrorist terrorist camps, and then we started getting retaliation. So the border district towns, there was mortar shells being fired literally on schools, and like the Pakistan army is firing mortar rounds on schools and kids are dying. And there's drones coming in. Fortunately, our air defense systems are robust. There was not a single person killed in a drone strike. And there were a bunch of drones coming in on all the border districts. Some places where I personally have people who live, and they were like, hey, we have turned off our lights. We've been told to stay in darkness, not to go outside. I had footage coming in from people who live like from their rooftops. They're filming drones coming in, and air defenses intercepting those drones in the sky. It was pretty crazy. So we had on all the border districts, we had drones coming in for a while, and then we took some more, did some more strikes, and that's when the intervention happened, and there was a ceasefire. Although Indian ministry denies claims of U.S. intervention, it was the Pakistan general calling the Indian general and saying, "Hey, we'd like to have a ceasefire." In terms of in terms of our role, when the initial attack happened, I was obviously pretty mad, as anyone would be, and I was trying to see if there's anything I can put my skills to, so to speak. Um, so I made a bunch of calls to some of my close guys who work closely with me. And I was like, "Hey, are you interested in doing some risky stuff?" And they were like, "Eh." Like mixed reactions, because some of them are preparing to go to the US, some guys going to Germany, some guys doing something else, some guys busy with his job. I was like, all right, fine. So I saw this one guy on Twitter posting activism kind of stuff with his real account. So I was like, hey, I didn't know we were allowed to do this. And then I thought, all right, so if my guys are busy or whatever, I'll just try to find people who want to work on this and see if we can do some fun stuff. So I posted this tweet saying, "Hey, I'll give a small bug bounty to anyone who can just do a DDoS attack on any government or military website of Pakistan government and just take it down for 1 hour. Send me the proof, and I'll give you a small bug bounty." And this was supposed to remain, yeah, and this was supposed to remain in the cybersecurity circles, but apparently it hit the because the news because the whole barrage was going off. It went viral. Somehow it escaped the cybersecurity circle. It was supposed to be, I had like 200 followers or something, 200, maybe 300, I don't remember. Suddenly I had 9,000 followers, like within the span of 20 48 hours. It went viral. If you can go to my profile, there's like 2 million views or something on the original tweet. And people were like, hey, we are not hackers, but we'll fund you. And I was very apprehensive about taking their money because I didn't know if it was legal or not, or if I could get in any trouble with the authorities. So I just said, hey, I replied to their reply saying, hey, I don't need any money. I'll fund it myself. If I need, I'll let you know. But I was never going to take anyone's money. So I got a so the best thing that happened was I got connected with a few hackers from across the country that I didn't know before, but they were like pretty skilled and they wanted to do some stuff. And then I also got introduced to a few folks who were happy to just, most of them were happy to do it. They didn't want any money. They were like, no. And I added, if you open the target list, I literally went to ChatGPT and I asked it, like, what are the most crucial websites for the Pakistan government in different sectors, and I gave them some example names like government and infra and defense and all that stuff. And it gave me a list. I literally pasted that list in Apple Notes and I posted screenshot of it. So this tweet was drafted in like 60 seconds. I didn't even know it was going to go viral. I just thought this will be like a fun thing I do with my inner circle, whoever is on Twitter that is watching, and maybe a few other folks. Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ, man. You gotta chill. What the fuck? Yo,
Yeah, that was pretty crazy.
okay. Could you imagine if I tried that with the American government? Wow. Oh my god, the fact that you managed to do this out in the open. Holy shit.
Yeah, and the funniest thing is, this is not the tweet that actually got me into trouble. It was the stuff, because even though this was viral, I didn't get any calls. No one was worried about it. And the problem I got was with the next tweet. Is actually when I posted some of the stuff we found. Now, if you see the original tweet, I'm just asking for a DDoS, right? Take down or deface. That's the words I used. I wasn't expecting people to just infiltrate stuff. But then we started getting some juicy stuff. So this is the thread we made. So look at the first screenshot. Just open it. Imran Khan is the name of the previous Prime Minister of Pakistan. This is one of the complaints that was on their prison infrastructure portal.
Whoa.
Yeah, so this was quite funny. So we decided just to put it on the first one. But we found a bunch of other stuff. The second one is pretty cool. Some ex-major of the Pakistan Army is running a security agency that provides protection to various these one of many of these these groups that we were talking about.
Yeah.
They fund these wars and all. When they visit, this is the guy that's providing them protection and intel inputs. And in one of the so we received
Holy
access to their entire
shit.
database. And if you look at the top, there's literally the entire URL. We didn't even blur it.
Oh my
I'm pretty sure they still haven't changed their passwords.
Oh my god. What the
So this the
fuck?
map you see is the mapping of every single news report on terrorist activity or any kind of accident or that kind of stuff, anything security related event that has happened. So these, how these security agencies work, right? They are, and there's actually a more fancy term they use, a fancier term. It's called risk management services.
Right, right.
Uh, Obviously, there's financial kind of risk. This is not that. This is the physical risk. They provide not just security, but they also maintain a very keen eye on all the security related events that are happening or might happen. And some of the entries suspiciously were into the future. So there's this one entry we found. We didn't post a screenshot. We found this one entry about a bomb blast somewhere in Pakistan into the future, like literally in like something like November 2025. So we thought, so we chalked it up to like, okay, this might be a data entry mistake, like a typo somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they wanted to put 2024. They saw some news event, they were putting it into their database, and they went 2025. But it still was quite crazy. And once we realized that this guy is, we found his a bunch of his stuff, and we realized that this guy was giving protection to these secret visits that were happening from a bunch of agencies that were visiting Pakistan secretly. And we saw the bomb threat kind of thing. We just posted his phone number, like, all right, fine, screw it. So in the tweet, you'll see the phone number, the actual phone number.
Yeah, I see it.
The only problem in the entire thread that could have gotten us into legal trouble was this, because this constitutes PII data, right? You shouldn't leak that. So if you look at the other screenshots, we have blurred out all the personal information. We have never shared anything, like phone numbers. These were the sites that were taken down during the entire thing. So we built this tracker. This one is the control panel of their network infrastructure of a power plant. So you see, we've blurred out all the PII data here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the network, the router, and the network traffic. So if we wanted to do damage, we could have had a lot of fun, but we didn't.
I got a question from the chat. Why would an Indian get into trouble for leaking Pakistani PII though?
Well, not trouble as in like legal trouble, because obviously at the time, and it still probably remains, Pakistan is an enemy state, so Indian government doesn't care really. And the trouble you would get into is with, number one, obviously employability. Like I can like after this, I highly doubt someone would employ me in the cybersecurity industry. Like I cannot go to a workplace and just say, hey, would you hire me? Because this like outcasts you from the cybersecurity space. Like I am now considered in cybersecurity circles, quote unquote, I don't know what the word is, but like you cannot touch this guy because this is
Yeah,
highly unethical. You should
you're
never do.
radioactive. They would call you
Yeah, exactly,
radioactive. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, radioactive. That's right. So because they don't want to get into trouble, so I should have ideally used not my real account and probably an anon account. I think I had one too many Red Bulls and I just went to it with my personal account. But yeah, so the trouble you would get into is either job related stuff, employment related stuff, or more of trust issues in the international community. So if I were attending a conference in the US or Middle East, a cybersecurity conference, and I was trying to get business for my company, it would be a bit difficult. They'd be skeptical. So that's the thing.
Dude, you're like a fucking whistleblower against the enemy. Oh my god. I didn't realize that it went this deep. Holy shit.
And
You
believe
guys
it or
figured
not,
it out. Wow.
this stuff is like just the fun stuff that we wanted to share. Like this isn't even the real stuff that we
Oh,
found.
I bet. I
Um,
bet. Yeah.
yeah, there were some data leaks that we could have done, but obviously data leaks are illegal. Like there's no platform, even on Telegram these days. You post a data leak, if it gets attention, it gets blocked in a few hours. Like your channel gets banned instantly
Wow. That
because GDPR and all. Their rules are pretty strict against PII data.
yeah, that's quite the step you took. That means that you can't, like, whatever it is that you do in your life now in regards to this
Oh
field of
yes,
work,
so
you
yeah, so
have to
this
work for yourself.
correct. That was the thought before posting the thread. I was like, all right, I know I don't want to work under someone, and that's been the thing. Now, if I want to make this, if nothing, this thread will at least be a commitment to myself that hey, no more jobs. Now you gotta go find clients or do business and stuff. So that was the thing. I told myself, I don't care if this goes viral or not. I'm not taking this down. This is a commitment to myself that at least for the coming few years, I'm not going to be employed. That's for sure. But obviously, I know folks in the industry, at least in India, who would be happy to employ me, who I've either worked with before or you know I know personally, and like they know they can trust me. So it's not like I can never get any job, obviously, but in a larger sense, it is the truth. Like uh, it's doubtful that you would be employed at a like a big four or something.
Wow. That's
There
quite
are
the
a few people
commitment, man.
who, yeah, and there were a few people who were like, hey, this does nothing and all, like this is just fake. Turns out recently, after all these things quieted down, the Pakistan government released a tender for buying new firewalls. I was like, yeah, really? I mean, doesn't seem fake now, huh? They cited that, hey, because of infiltrations, we have to buy new firewalls, and we are putting out a tender for bid. So if any companies want to sell us firewalls, you send your proposals.
Holy shit! Wow. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the benefits of living in a country where nationalism is still alive. You know, your government
Yep.
doesn't go after you for that.
Yep. Well, you
Wow.
definitely give them something to go after you if they decide to. So that's for sure. I mean, what if the next party is not very nationalist? And, they just
Yeah.
say, "All right, we're going to cut down on this stuff." You never know.
Yeah, because like
So
in a
all in all,
Canadian
it's pretty stupid. Yeah.
in a Canadian context, like if I did something like this, like Canada would extradite me immediately. Like there would be no questions. Like, are you kidding me? No, get the fuck out of here. We don't care if you're a citizen. Yeah, they would absolutely sell my soul to America just so that I don't know Trump doesn't hit them with an extra percent of tariffs.
Yeah, but you have to understand,
Yeah,
Canada-US relations is very different than India-Pakistan relations. I'm sure if Canada had like a very antagonistic relationship with US, I doubt that would do. Unless now, obviously, if this were to become like an international issue, which was another one of my worries, is like, all right, it's very unlikely because West doesn't tend to cover a lot of India-Pakistan stuff unless it's very major. But if this were to garner like international, let's so that is the reason we didn't post the other stuff. I actually didn't even share it with my own team, the kind of stuff that we found. The people who were DMing me or sending me stuff, there was a bunch of things that I didn't even tell my own team. I because I didn't want them to be get into trouble just in case,
yeah, of
because
course.
that was the kind of stuff that if I put out, and it gains international attention, and let's say, I don't know, UN or one of these international committees, Pakistan goes and one of their pointers in their briefing is like, hey, we want this guy extradited out of US because he infiltrated our military digital infrastructure. I'm like, okay, I don't want that to happen. Then my government is in a compromising position. Like, do you give out a citizen, or to maintain peace? I don't know. I didn't want to become a Snowden, that was for sure.
Yeah. That's no, you're definitely right that it's like the relationship are totally different, and that's why you can't get away with it. It's just so because what like if we put this in the context from like what I understand it, like it wasn't as if you guys had some kind of like a mass cyber attack. It wasn't like one of these 4chan things where like enough people got on a call and uh ended up collaborating. It wasn't like Stuxnet or like any of these kind of foreign operations. It's just you're an independent person that was like, okay, a state sponsored actor has attacked my nation and massacred innocent people. What is it that I can do to help? Because like there's already people on the ground doing all the EMS work and like investigators and people that are actually like fighting the war and all this other stuff. And from your position, you decided that what you could do is like you didn't just fuck with their infrastructure. All you did was you set a bounty being like, hey guys, if anyone's interested, I'll pay and we'll publish some of the work. And you did, true to your word, you did censor it. You didn't like release it. This really, like, if you really wanted to, um, you could have martyred yourself and completely just released absolute. Hey, here's a zip file of everything we found. Here's a torrent. You can see it forever. Here's a dump on WikiLeaks that will be available for fucking ever. You know,
Put it on the dark web. Yeah, now there's like a million copies. There's literally no government in the world that can take it down ever again. It'll just be
yeah,
there in the cyberspace.
yeah. It stopped short of that, which like I can't believe that I'm even talking to a person that's did that. Like, dude, that's fucking. I can't wrap my mind around that. That's so insane. You you helped expose vulnerabilities in their networks and their critical infrastructure in a way that, if it went to the extreme, could have caused like an international incident. That's fucking crazy, dude. What
Yeah,
the
for example,
fuck?
scroll to the second last tweet. I'll show you something.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, yeah, before that, eight one. Yeah, just open that. We had access to every single billboard. It should be somewhere. I've mentioned it. No, it won't be in the photos. It'll just be written somewhere. Yeah, collected geolocation. Yeah, that one. That point. Like we knew where
Wow.
every single billboard was. We could have done a lot of stuff. Like we could have. Like if we really wanted to, like we had like our finger on the button. If the war went further, then this would have all become an underground operation, none of it shared publicly, and then we could have like done some serious damage. There's other apt groups, so advanced persistent threat groups, which are like more severe kind of stuff that do actual data leaks. We are not that, obviously. We, if you become that, you get on these lists, international lists and no fly lists and stuff. We didn't want to get into that, but there are groups who have leaked entire databases of district police, state police. So like you can find every single like so something equivalent to like a social security number. So like that's the national identity card. They've leaked that data. They've leaked. They've also leaked, what do you call it? Yeah, the entire database of police personnel, where they're posted, like where the duty is, what's the route, what's you know universities, students, like literally all kinds of databases along with photos of documents. So you have these large data leaks that have happened via different APT groups simultaneously while all this was happening. We just decided not to go on that route and stay in our lane.
Jesus Christ, dude. What? I I can't wrap my mind around this. This is
Also, there's some interesting stuff. So if you scroll up, there's this one tender. There's something. So this driver's license, the seven number, that's literally every single driver's license of Pakistan. Like it was just there. It wasn't even difficult. The funniest thing about all this is we were flabbergasted. So we were prepared. So the folks who were working on this were prepared to have some long nights and a lot of energy drinks. Turns out this was easy. Like this, anybody could have done this. It wasn't even a lot of skill that was required. We were like prepared to have skill set. Just yeah, that book is pretty cool. It's one of my favorite books.
yeah, I this literally just popped into my mind as soon as you're talking about this, because for anyone that hasn't read this, I highly recommend checking it out. I haven't, honestly, but I listened to this episode where the author of this book went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and she essentially explained like the infrastructure that we all rely on, all these things that hold all our private and most intimate data, the most sensitive data, are actually so flawed, and the infrastructure that is meant to upkeep them is so flawed that anybody, and it doesn't have to even be a sophisticated state actor, it just could be an independent person or even a group, can really, really, really badly fuck with this to the point where it actually shuts these systems down. I mean, the most infamous incident was the hacking of the NHS, the National Health Service in England, where a ton of hospitals and their computer systems fell prey to a bunch of scamware, where essentially there's like, oh, if you don't
Mm.
pay 100K in Bitcoin or however much, uh, your entire system will be wiped. Like there were entire like hospitals that had to be shut down as a result of it. And I don't know if people like lost their lives or anything, but that was just like an example of that going viral. And on one hand, I'm genuinely shocked at, okay, first of all, this stuff back in the day, right, like in the early 2000s or whatever, um this would have been on some hidden forum on like, or 4chan, or just like a part of the internet that's not visited, or even the dark web,
Mm.
right? This is where it would have happened. We didn't have social media back then, like an attack of this level. And it's just posted on Twitter, and anyone can look up the thread and read it,
Yeah.
and they can join in and send you a DM and be like, "Hey, man, I want to capture a bounty." I just that is on another level, man. That's insane. Like it's happening so out in the open. Like I didn't even hear about it. Like how did this not make headlines? I don't understand. How is this not like not even your name specifically, but just the fact that like, hey, there's a concerted effort by an independent group to leak all this information, and they actually like got a lot of really useful shit. Um, and could have gone a lot deeper, as you said. Which doesn't surprise me at all. I mean that one photo where you have here uh with the lady in the room, what that reminded me of, there's these websites that you can go to, like
Yeah, just
publiccams or
look at
something like
yeah,
that. You're right,
yeah.
because the internet of things, if you just don't have security on your webcam, or if it's just not connected to the right, like in the right configuration, anyone with enough information can hack into it, and it doesn't really take all that much effort. And so now you have access to CCTV, you have access to all these different cameras that are just all over regions, and the fact that you guys were able to gain access to that, I mean, I don't know if it was a live feed or if it was like frames just every like 20 seconds or whatever, but still, like that is, I just like, I don't, like really, like the security was that fucking bad. I don't understand.
So a couple of things. Obviously, for the CCTVs, crazy thing. Just a few months back, I was literally on the front page of my local newspaper giving an interview on how bad CCTV security is because some guys were found hacking into hospital CCTV cameras of changing rooms and examination rooms and just leaking them or selling the footage of women, changing and stuff. So I was literally just talking about CCTV security a few months back before this all this happened. I guess I put it in the highlights as well on my profile. And the second thing is, the book we talked about when you said the infrastructure that is critical is actually the reason. So it's obviously one thing is it's easy to infiltrate unless it's looked after constantly with proper security configurations and actual skilled teams maintaining that security infrastructure. The second thing, the only reason that those infrastructure is the infrastructure is not taken down by enemy forces is because it is more in their interest to keep it running and just sit there and quietly monitor. That is the only reason it's not being taken down right now.
Oh,
The
absolutely.
reason,
Yeah.
yeah, the reason, if let's say if US has access to, I don't know, China's nuclear missiles, the only reason they wouldn't blow them up on themselves is because it's not in the best interest right now. They'd rather just have it in place to use when it's actually necessary. I mean, if you look at the book in the beginning talks about how the Russians hacked into Ukraine's electricity grid and turned everything down. Why? Because they were, one was when they were testing if it actually works, and the second was during the war. Why? So if it were not those either of those two cases, they wouldn't have touched it. Once they knew that they were able to access it, they just don't do anything. They just sit there and monitor it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the stuff we posted and some of the stuff that people shared with us, a lot of them actually told. So most of them didn't want money. Number one. Number two is most of them told me like, "Hey, I've had this for 2 months. Hey, I've had this since a year." Like some of these access to like power plants and whatnot, like the guy is casually telling me he has access to a power plant of an enemy state since a year and is just sitting on it. He's like, yeah, I have it. Wait, I'll find you something else also. Or, oh, by the way, here's like 75 CCTVs in this region of the same company who has installed them, and I found their credentials, and I found this CSV file that has all the credentials and the URLs. Hey, here you go. There was this one guy who told me he had access to, so he also showed it to me. He didn't want to give it to me because I didn't know him, he didn't know me, and he was a bit apprehensive, so it's not posted on here. But he was like, hey, I have access to an internet service provider, and I have literally toned down their bandwidth by like 95%. So the entire this one state doesn't have internet right now. All they can do is like 5 kbps of speed, maybe send some text over the internet. I was
Jesus
like, what? I was like,
Christ.
how long have you had this? He's like, oh, about a week now. I was like, what? You literally hacked into an ISP and you can turn off the entire fucking internet and you're just sitting on it. Yeah, see, this is their tender information. So, like, you know what a
Okay, who
tender is,
designed
right?
this? Who designed this? Why is this still in the
Exactly.
1990s? What the fuck is this? Like what?
You know, the thing is, when the guy who found this, when he got on a call with me and he showed me this, I was like, hey, hold on. Like, this looks like a honeypot. Are you sure? Like, where did you find this? Because the design was so bad, the security was so weak. I literally thought the tender information header is like printed twice, right? If you see on the top.
Yeah, because
I was like, this
that's not even
has to be
text. This is an image.
image. Yeah, I was like, and below that, the tender information is like twice. I was like, this has to be a honeypot. I'm pretty sure it is a honeypot. Can you just look? It's like, no, this is actually the URL. Just go on Google and search it. Go on news and all that stuff. Like, this was a genuine URL. So this is where the tenders happen on that website. So you can imagine it definitely wasn't that difficult to get into these websites, obviously.
Oh my
And the funny thing
god.
is, they were claiming that, hey, Indian airstrikes, they are nothing. But then on the other end, they were putting out tenders for repairs on those sites. I was like, eh. This image, by the way, has the latitude and longitude. So this of a location that we are not supposed to have. They didn't clear the metadata before posting this image on the website. So you know how those there are these placeholder images in government websites of people shown working or like the office or something.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one of those images. And we just downloaded it and looked in the properties and we found that they left the entire latitude longitudes of this government office.
Yeah, that's it right there. I just looked it up. Yeah, that's the other thing for anyone listening. If you have a phone and that's what you use to take most of your pictures, it's gonna have some metadata in it that is not like in the name or anywhere. And I would recommend that you look into somehow wiping that. Like there's settings in your phone that you can do to like wipe the location off to turn that off. Because you don't even need to like enable location on Twitter. If you just download the photo, Twitter's not going to hide that or any of these social media platforms. And there's actually an iPhone shortcut. If you like Google it, someone made a shortcut so that you can actually enable it depending on the photo. You can select as many photos as you like, and it'll wipe all the metadata in it. I'm sure there's some kind of a shortcut to even like use the camera app in that way, or maybe use a third-party app somehow. But yeah, that's an actual real thing. So you don't need to advertise your location or even like be what's it called? What's that guy? A geoguesser? Like you don't have to be a geoguesser
Yeah.
genius. You can just read the metadata and you'll have enough information. Um yeah, that's nuts because it even like the f-stop number of the camera, the focal length, everything. The device
Yep.
Huawei. Yeah, they use the fucking Huawei
Yeah. So
phone
the
for it.
reason we shared this is because of that, is because they are using Chinese devices.
Okay. Why why would you bring a Huawei phone into a government building? What the fuck?
Well, if you don't know, China has very good trade relations with Pakistan because they are a strategic partner in case China decides to go against India.
I mean, I get that, and China has they've really been pushing their presence, especially in Africa and a lot of these places where they set up their infrastructure for them. Um, but that's insane. Okay, I guess I guess they're all in with China. If it's to the point where like a random not a random person, but like a government official can bring a Huawei phone into a government building, like that says everything about their relationship. Um
Yep.
yeah, that's crazy, man. That's a crazy dump. Uh I I can't believe because what I heard about it was okay, the attack happened. Yeah, the US response, the whole thing was short-lived. Everyone kind of panicked for a little bit, and then everyone fucked off and nobody really heard anything after it. Um, but the fact that there was this level of and I don't mean sophisticated in the sense that you guys toiled over it, because from what you told me, like it's not that it was easy, but it was just a lot easier than you expected. I just didn't expect there would be this level of sophisticated in the sense of like just how much data you were able to collect of a scrape that you did on them and how easy it was because that just makes me concerned about like okay so how's my government security doing like how's that going because the place where I work doesn't exactly have great security and I've worked for like even like a startup where they were openly using a Chinese customer relations program that was made by ByteDance. And I was like, guys, you do realize that like this is the same company that owns TikTok, right? And they called me a conspiracy theorist, and I was like, what are you talking? This is not a conspiracy. It's an open secret that they literally have like they work hand in hand with TikTok and with ByteDance. What do you mean? That's like what? Why am I the crazy one? It's just yeah, man. That is first of all, well done. Holy shit, that's incredible. Honestly, man, that
It was
is
fun. Yeah.
yeah. That's fucking insane. And the
So
fact
so
that it
let me
changed your
just
career, it's crazy.
yeah let me show you a few hypotheticals. So scroll up to like I guess the power plant one. Let's say so. This the message that this sends. Um, a bit up. I guess power plant would be. I don't know. Where is it?
Yeah, this one.
Yeah. So there's this email addresses and LinkedIn profiles, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So now when a normal person looks at this, all right, hey, they've got their email addresses. When a cybersecurity person looks at this, look at the attack vectors. Now I have their LinkedIn, I have their email address, which means I can, if I have like let's say 1,500 email addresses, like 1,000 email addresses, what's the next step? Hypothetically, I send out a phishing email. Now if I have this much, I probably have some more, and I probably know what their internal documents look like. So I just create one more document saying, hey, there's a, I don't know, fire safety drill or something, and here's the link to whatever and to apply or something. I send it out to 1,000 of them. One of them is going to click, and I have more access. So the when you put the entire thread together and you look at more attack vectors, it's crazy the kind of stuff that anyone can do. I mean, not just us, like literally anyone can do stuff here. I mean, the things that you can accomplish with the information that is just here, it's crazy. And in terms of like for example, Chinese threat actors have been in US telecom companies infrastructure for a while now. In 2024 this was the big news that Chinese companies, I think the APT group was named Salt Typhoon if I'm not wrong, they have been in the US telecom infrastructure for a while now. If you go to bleepingcomputer.com or something, you'll find these news articles. You might have to search for it though. Yeah, just search US Telecom, I guess. You'll probably find it. Salt iPhone is fine, yeah. Oh, Canada is also there, yeah. See, so they've been exploiting Cisco routers to get into infra, and US has been actively working with these private companies to get them out, to get the infiltrators out. But yeah, so imagine US telecom infrastructure is also compromised. So it's not really it can't be like the things that seem secure, they only seem secure because you've yet not discovered the enemy inside. That's probably the case.
Yeah, it's just reminds me of that like going back to that interview with Joe Rogan when I was listening to it with every single layer that the woman told about her story and how she learned about all this. It I think it just came down to the fact that people I think people have a hard time wrapping their minds around security in their life in that way in the digital space. Like we think of it as like, oh, okay, if you have a good enough password, then you're fine. But nobody thinks of it in the way that, hey, by the way, if anybody has a device that's connected or has like a TikTok account, if it connects to a router that you are also connected to, TikTok also has access to that device information, including like keystrokes and all this other stuff. Um, it doesn't go to that level. And so if that doesn't happen in like the small things, right, in your day-to-day job, in your own personal dealings with your email or what have you, then over like a big picture, right, when it comes to the cyber infrastructure of a city, of a state, of a country, if that doesn't come from the bottom to up, then you're not really going to have a robust system that keeps it in check. Like the amount of times that I've worked with people that have little to no understanding of computers, even though they use them all day, has really been mystifying in a lot of ways because I'm like, well, look, you don't need to know like a lot. You just need to know on like, just don't click that fucking link, or use a different browser,
Yeah.
or like create a password that's not memorable, based on some like familiar details that can be looked up, like your birth date or where you're from or what have you. Um, there's a lot of like just small things if you do for your own private security, that's gonna reverberate upwards, and then you'll actually have like a secure society. Like this doesn't come like this doesn't get solved by the government being like, okay, we're implementing these standards. There's always going to be lazy people, always. But it's like the Japanese, they have this in their culture where part of their sense of honor and what they do is the fact that like the small things have to be done with the amount of like the same amount of care as the big things do. And when you treat life like that, it changes your perspective. Now like the mundane doesn't seem like simple or stupid, like, oh, okay, whatever, so there's trash on the street, or like, no, come on, how many times have you seen the Japanese like in a like a sports stadium go to a foreign event and then they end up like cleaning it afterwards, because that's how they perceive life, right? And I don't know if I'm
So
ranting a little bit, but
no,
like
yeah,
that's
that's
that the cybersecurity aspect of it, like it's just whenever I encounter that, I'm just my mind is just like, how the fuck? Like these are just basics. These are just like it's like locking the door to your house.
so I'd say two things on that. One is, yes, you're obviously spot on. I mean, it has to come from the bottom up, meaning if you are concerned about your personal security and if you are going to give your data to someone like a birth date or a photograph or a document, and you would ask like, hey, what's your security like? Where is this going? Who's taking care of this? Who's looking after the security? What is it that you're doing to make sure my data is not being sold off or being leaked onto the dark web? The
Hmm.
second thing would be is, people think, so let's say you hear about these large data breaches that happen, millions of
Yep. Yep.
passwords leaked or something. People don't really care because it doesn't affect them at the moment, right? But if your electricity grid was down and you were not able to have electricity for 3 days, you definitely care. That's something you care about because now it has repercussions in front of your eyes. Most of these things happen in the background, and unless like your bank account gets compromised, or you start getting a bunch of scam calls, or you fall for a phishing link and now there's virus on your computer, and then that leads to something else, now you care. So the problem with cybersecurity is, until something happens to you, it's always like, you know what, why am I important? Nobody's going to want to hack into my stuff. And that's the reason that most people are, unless they are someone who's actually interested in tech and understanding, that security is important, and they've seen the repercussions either with themselves or with someone else, or read about it or heard about it, they're not going to be interested in security. So there's a lot of awareness. Awareness is a big issue. Like, there has to be a lot of awareness in people, and once they actually understand, tech is not going away, obviously. It's only going to get more and more ingrained into everybody's lives, day to day lives. So the faster we can raise awareness, the faster people will understand. And the better thing is, since tech is relatively new, the newer generations are finally coming around to realizing, you know what, actually, where is my data going? Who is listening to my microphone on my phone and laptop? Who's watching the webcam on my, like, is it possible? Can someone hack into my laptop? Once they start asking those questions and they start doing some deep dives, they finally understand. The other thing I would say is, there has been, and there obviously should be, a more push towards, secure by design stuff. Like, even if the user is not aware about their security, I hope that people like you and me, who actually worry about privacy and security, will push enough so that these companies are held accountable enough that they implement security measures such that we, the people who are actually interested in security, make enough difference so that the people who don't really care about security, even if they don't, they'll be secure for the most part. So something as simple as compulsory multi-factor authentication. Like, you have to set, the moment you set up an account, you have to have, other than password, some other mechanism of authentication.
Hmm.
Just because 10% of your user base is very strict about that, and they push you to have a compulsory MFA, then the rest of the 90% out now are secure by default, or at least secure for the most part. So I hope that the people who are actually involved in this stuff, they help push towards decisions that secure by design, because that is, unless the part where you said, how it has to come from bottom up, that's going to take time. In the meantime, we have to rely on laws or these security mechanisms that are built into the systems. And then along with that, simultaneously, we keep building awareness, we keep talking about it, and then hopefully then the coming generations become more aware about what's happening. I mean, the whole AI thing is like in a league of its own. I mean, that's going to be crazy. So that's for sure. I mean, even before AI was out there were apps that were like, there's this book that I got, I still haven't finished, I just started it. Yeah, what's its name? It's not here, it's at home. I have posted a tweet, you can look it up. It's something about surveillance. Yeah, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. That's the name. It'll be somewhere on my profile. But yeah, the book's name is The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. It talks about how these data capture for advertisement and all happens in large companies. This is a good book. I think it's going to be a good read. I've heard good things about it, so I'm still going to go through it. Yeah, this is some good stuff. So obviously it has to be a hand in hand approach where we push for secure by design stuff, and in the meantime we raise awareness, because either way is not going to work. If we just raise awareness but we don't actually put things in as mechanisms in place, it's people are keep going to fall for these scams and stuff, which are obviously getting more and more um, complicated with AI. Last time we spoke about, on the last episode, we spoke about AI being used. You asked if AI is actually being used in active attacks, and at that time I'd said that, hey, in my real world experience, in my work experience, it's not come up as often. Unfortunately, now it has. There's malware being developed by AI, and that's pretty evident. There's I myself am building something in this. We can get into that a little bit if you want. Um, we are currently working at building offensive advanced cyber warfare systems that can do actual offensive attacks, like offensive cybersecurity stuff. That's usually frowned upon. Cybersecurity folks don't really enjoy working on systems that are going to be used by the military. I don't know why, but there are folks like me who are actually interested in that stuff, as long as it's being put in the right hands. That's obviously a question. I actually am thinking about raising capital. I've spoken with a few VCs, but what I want to build is something that can perform cyber attacks autonomously. It's like you don't need human intervention. The reason you need human intervention in cybersecurity when you're actually doing penetration testing, doing these complicated attacks, is because you need decision making and you need creativity. You need to find out ways to work around security mechanisms to infiltrate something, to exploit a
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability. If we can figure out a way where we can use machine learning algorithms to improve the agent over time at performing cyber attacks on itself, we are looking at building a payload module that can go on top of unmanned systems. So this could be a drone, a ground machine, or a submarine kind of drone underwater. A payload module that sits on top of any unmanned system, and once you send it off and give it some direction, it can do target detection, like what to attack, um, how to attack. So finding the right exploits, doing reconnaissance, surveillance, finding the right exploit after information gathering and analysis. It can find the vulnerabilities and perform the exploit, and how to get the data back. So exfiltration and relaying it back to base, or maybe just storing it on board and coming back. So if you put an edge computer in that module, and that can do very fast inference, you can have it learn as it goes uh, into real world operations and actually perform cyber attacks while it is loaded onto these, let's say, drones or something. So that is one thing that I'm currently working on the side. So that's a bit interesting.
Okay, so you're basically Peter Thiel building India's Palantir. I gotcha.
I wouldn't say that, because I don't know. It's difficult. I mean, the VC ecosystem here is. I feel bad for shitting on them, but the VC ecosystem here is horrible. I'm sorry if someone ever listens to this. I'm really sorry. There are some good folks out there for sure, although I have not come across many. Some sure. They don't tend to bet on long-term projects. or innovations, technical breakthroughs. So right now, I spoke with a few VCs. I was thinking about raising $500,000 for, I don't know, 10% or something. What I wanted was enough money to buy a lot of parts. Compute is expensive, obviously. Right now, I just have a bunch of scripts on a shitty Raspberry Pi with 8 GB RAM. I'd like to have some compute and then some good quality drones to put it on. Right now, we've been putting it on cheap, off the shelf toy drones that like run out, like they stop working after less than a week. So we don't really have ways to test it in the real environments, but we in simulated environments, yes, definitely. So we are working on some stuff. If I'm able to raise capital, well and good. Otherwise, I'll just keep bootstrapping like I have. But then my time is divided 50% into cybersecurity clients and 50% into doing actual R&D and building something. The end goal would be building payload modules that can go on, military stuff and just uh, do attacks in the actual enemy battlefield, or maybe even in intelligence operations, urban environment kind of a scenario where you want to have full spectrum visibility, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, radio frequency, entire spectrum, VHF, UHF, HF, microwave radars, I don't know, what have you, to be able to attack those, jam those. So current drones that can do surveillance, for example, they fly very high up. They can do thermal imaging. That can Some of them can capture satellite communication, but none of them can do Wi-Fi, because obviously, for if you want to hack into a Wi-Fi, you need to be in close proximity. You cannot do it from like hundreds of meters of height in the sky. You need to be very close to the actual network to be in the signal strength area where you can actually do that. So a hypothetical scenario would be, if you integrate this module along with, let's say, drones onboard computer, you could probably triangulate where the signal is coming from if you were, let's say, attacking a Wi-Fi network, and have the drone fly close enough so that it can perform, or maybe sit on the top of a rooftop while the module performs the attack. You could do the same with Bluetooth. The reason Wi-Fi is attractive is because a bunch of drones operate using Wi-Fi. There are other systems that operate using Wi-Fi. If the CCTVs are connected, you can definitely get into the cameras through the Wi-Fi network. There's a bunch of other things that you can do. Then these mobile C2, so command and control units. So these are like small trucks with literally a room inside it with computers and big screens and all kinds of antenna. They're usually deployed in the middle of a battlefield or close enough to coordinate attacks across land, sea, and air. Um, if you were able to capture their signals, I'm sure you can do some damage there as well. So those are some areas we're looking at. Obviously, it's quite complex, and one of the difficult things about working with defense tech is, if you're working on your own and you don't have the money to hire people who have actually worked at these large defense companies, you just don't know where the tech is at currently. So, for example, if I'm working on one of these payload modules, I don't know if some large company has already built it and sold it to the military. And you'll just never know if it already exists or not, because not every defense tech project is out in the open for you to just learn about or read about, unless it's been actually deployed in the battlefield or advertised at a conference or on the website of these defense companies. So you are pretty much working in the dark. You don't know whether or not, you don't know if it's actually already implemented, or if someone actually even needs it, unless you work closely with a research organization or one of these military incubation kind of programs. But yeah, it's fun to actually work on some cool projects and not just do a 9 to 5.
Yeah. Some cool projects like fucking drones. Dude, that's not a hobby. You're creating defense tech. Oh my god. Oh man, no, I look. I'm not making fun of you. It's funny how you
No,
mention
I
it
get it.
so casually. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. So from that moment, then you pivoted. You were like, well, what am I gonna do with my time now that I've put myself in this position? And you're going all in on creating defense tech. Interesting.
The crazy thing is, I always wanted to get into defense tech, which is why I was, if you look at my company's website, it already mentioned defense tech, because we were already working on stuff like, more of defensive stuff. Like there's this one thing we were working on, that was a gunshot detection system. So you'd match audio signature that was received from either microphones,
Mm-hmm.
publicly placed microphones in crowded areas, or in the region where actual battles are happening, like hills and forests. So the troops that are on the ground, they obviously have some devices, some phones, sometimes radio sets. You can use the microphone input of that to collect audio signatures from different places on the battlefield, triangulate, we can put them together, figure out the direction, that where is the gunshot sound coming from. Then you can have a trained model to identify what kind of firearm it was, approximate elevation, direction, that kind of stuff, and feed it onto a map. It later turned out that there were already other companies who had built this, so I thought, probably not the best use of my time. Although the thing is, India is pushing towards indigenization, so we don't want to rely on other countries for our defense equipment as much as possible. So it still would be a good idea from a business perspective, because even if someone has built this stuff, Indian army would rather have it built in India.
No, of course. Yeah, certainly. Wow, that's quite the pivot, man. Um, that you've made there. That I realize that for you, this is just like the last couple of months looking back, but for me, it's just I'm just getting like shot after shot after shot of just like you're fucking. I don't know. You're on some kind of a crusade, and that is and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that like you
I get
clearly
that.
have
Yeah.
a goal in mind, a mission in mind, um an idea that's burning throughout all this. Um yeah, that's nuts, man. I mean, it's one thing to go from like, you know, having like working on your own business and developing that, but now you're actually getting involved in potentially altering the landscape of conflicts to come, and that's a hell of a thing. Wow. I That's crazy. You guys are literally doing a startup Palantir. That's basically what it
Yeah.
is. Like you guys are gonna have
Yeah.
interns soon if you don't already.
Yeah, I've been very wary of hiring people. Like I said, I don't, like
I
we
bet.
talked about before. Yeah, like we talked about before. I don't have any of my guys sharing anywhere that they work with me, because I don't want anyone to get into trouble. I don't know if I'm on some hit lists right now. I have no idea. I hope I'm not. Um, yeah. So
You probably
obviously,
are. You probably are.
could be.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, after this kind of leak, I don't think that like that doesn't just go away. Your name's got to be
Yeah,
there somewhere.
it takes a lot of time, and showing yourself that you probably are not a threat takes a lot of PR, which you'll see. Like that's why I've quieted down on Twitter as well. I've gone back to shit posting. I don't really comment a lot of geopolitics stuff most of the time. I don't know. So anyway, yeah. I've so there was this a couple of interns that I was planning to hire, and all this happened. I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'll find you different. Like, I'll connect you with a few people if you really want an internship or need a job or something. I'm sorry, I cannot hire you. I just cannot risk it at this point." And then after that, any job applications that have come in, I've just not looked at them at all. Like, I just don't know who to trust for a while at least. So I've been very I've only been working with people who I know since a few years, at least minimum.
Yeah, and I don't blame you. That seems like the logical choice to make. With something as sensitive as this. That is Yeah, that's wild. Because I mean, just the kind of leaks like we've had here in Canada have surprised me at how certain people were able to get away with it. The main one that comes to mind was that actually during COVID, our number one top like secret lab with the highest like security clearance was found to have been harboring two Chinese spies, one of which became chief of the chemical weapons program for the army in
Wow.
China. She was a scientist in Canada that was working in this lab in Winnipeg. And during COVID, they sent samples of, I think it was actually before COVID, they sent samples of like Ebola and a couple of other viruses back home to China. They labeled it as like something like flashlight parts or something. and they managed to send samples back. And this wasn't even like a major scandal in
So
Canada.
when you say, sorry to interrupt you, when you say
Yeah.
harboring, you mean like they just didn't know they were there, right? Or do you mean like the lab, like the team was actually trying to hide the fact that they were Chinese spies?
No, I don't think the lab was trying to hide it. I think it was just a story of incompetence and poor background checking. But the thing is, like, I had that opinion initially about the story because I didn't really know a lot of the details behind it. But ever since our last prime minister stepped down and the new guy came in, um, there have been more and more stories coming out about the ties between certain aspects of the Canadian government. I guess you can call it the deep state or what have you, and China. And it is very, very confusing why it seems as though there are sectors of Canadian society that have sold themselves out to various nations, whether it's like or nations are like just groups that do not have Canada's interest in mind, whether it's the Khalistanis or like the Chinese mafia, or I guess the triads or whatever they call them now. Like there was a story that came out a couple months back where the prime minister, like months after his initial election in 2015, when he first got elected, Justin Trudeau, he was at an event where there were known CCCP representatives and also the main boss of like a very well known Chinese mafia. And the scandal only came out now. And not only that, like we've that whole story in the US where they had those like secret like police stations that were Beijing sponsored to essentially spy on Chinese citizens. That was up here in Canada too. We had
Oh
several
wow.
of those police stations just existing and nobody did anything about it. Um It's very weird when you look into the ties between Canada and China because they are actually much closer than you think in some ways. But yeah, I forgot the point that I was going to make, but it is incredible that like you've been able to do this out in the open and now you got interns trying to apply, which is yeah, that's insane, man. Fuck, yeah, I wish you the best of luck. I That does not sound like something that you just do for fun. It seems like a lot of hard work that you got to put into that, into actually making it happen, and in a way that's secure enough. Oh, right, yeah. The point that I was going to make with those Chinese spies with the weapons lab. Yeah, you don't know who to trust. You really don't.
Yeah, pretty much. Yep. Did you see the just one second, switch my device. Give me one second.
No problem.
Yeah, now?
I can hear you, but the mic is different now. Not sure if you're speaking, but not getting any feedback there. Bear with us, folks. Oh, okay. We're gonna take a. Oh, hello.
Yeah, I can hear you now. I was saying, did you see the US interception of Chinese agents who were like carrying samples of some bacteria or something that were designed to kill crops in the US? This was pretty recent. They
Yes.
found some guy at the airport or something.
Yes, I do remember that. It was like some kind of a pathogen that they were going to spread on on the crops. Yeah, I have heard of that. That's insane. It reminds me of like when you said like yeah, it's sometimes pen testing is about like just sending an agent out into the field and seeing if they can get away with it, and this is just one of those examples.
And the crazy part is like the surface of warfare is just it's so extensive. I mean, I read someone some Guy was talking about this on Twitter. I probably have it in my bookmark somewhere, but he was talking about weather manipulation in battlefields, and there was like a bunch of old books that talked about like how to manipulate weather in real time. Like you could literally just have a bunch of rain and thunderstorms wherever your enemy is camped out, to like reduce visibility and that kind of stuff, and limit their operational capability. And that's crazy.
Yeah, it is the level of warfare that we're seeing now. It's just getting more concerning because it's not at all what we're used to, and I don't know. It seems like a lot of this stuff is spiraling, but at the end of the day, it also seems like it's also a nothing burger. Like the recent Iran Israel like rockets firing back and forth. There were times when I would be like, I'd be finished with a day of work. I would be outside having a cigarette and just thinking to myself, like, if this is real, if this is actually what they say it is, then at any given moment, if somebody fires off the wrong weapon in the wrong place and somebody decides to fire off a nuke, then it could very well all just be over at any moment. And you can't like dwell on that kind of stuff for long because then you just start going crazy. But that did cross my mind a couple times, and I don't think that that's a like a crazy thought necessarily to have, because it's one thing like when North Korea was posturing a couple of years ago, and people are like, okay, there's no way they would because that's their trump card, pun intended. Like
Yeah,
they would never force themselves in that position because then life as they know it would end, and there's no point for them doing that. But it's a little bit different when Israel is on a hot streak and they decide to push it further and go against Iran. Um, and now they're just firing rockets on civilians on both sides, and you're just left to think like, okay, I guess all of this could just go up in flames at any moment. Like,
yeah.
Jesus Christ! Like, I guess we're living through history. This is what it means.
I mean, the fact that like our entire existence depends on like a bunch of old people in suits deciding what to do next. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there was once again like another fantastic Joe Rogan podcast with this one a woman author. I think her name is Annie Jacobson. Yes. Yeah, so she's written a couple of novels on the not just the industrial military complex, but how the armed services work. Like she did a whole book on the CIA in this book called Surprise Kill Vanish. She wrote a whole book on Area 51 and a couple of other these topics, but there was her latest book on nuclear conflict that she wrote was very concerning because she essentially gave in the beginning of it like a countdown or a timeline of what would happen if a nuke was to go off. And there's also these issues that we don't really consider where depending on where the nuke like flies on the planet, if it has to cross a certain country, well, that country is going to think that that attack is coming from them when in reality it just has to pass over them and go elsewhere. That's the issue with like the US firing a rocket on North Korea. It has to fly over a portion of Russian airspace, which can be misconstrued as an attack on them. So they'll just retaliate because they have like 3 or 4 minutes to make the decision. And the point that I want to make here is that there was an incident that she details where a misplaced VHS tape of a military exercise that was made to look as real as possible somehow found its way into like the main display of like this control room, and for a moment the US Army, or a portion of it anyways, was convinced that there was a nuclear attack happening. This is like a famous incident, and it took like 15 minutes for someone to actually like find the fact that like there was a tape that was placed as a training tape that was playing on all the screens. And if they hadn't done that, like what kind of a world would we be living in? Like as you said, like we're just relying on all these people in suits to not press the goddamn button.
Yeah, we had one of those scares. Not a scare. So Pakistan during these tensions fired this missile. That's a ballistic missile, and the problem with firing ballistic missiles is like, is it a conventional warhead or is it a nuclear warhead that is attached to
Hmm.
it? And they didn't inform that we have a non-nuclear missile being fired towards India. So like we just had like a ballistic missile coming in, and it was intercepted way before, fortunately. But like they didn't let us know, like, hey, this is a conventional warhead. This is not a nuclear missile. So that was one of the key escalating factors. So after the, like I said, after the military strikes on the terror camps, we started having these drone attacks. They started first with this ballistic missile that was being fired into India, and the route, like the trajectory, was showing it was targeted towards Delhi, which is the capital where the president and the prime minister and everyone sits. So that was a key escalating factor. Like that should have never happened from their end. Like that was just out of the line. And that too, sending a missile that is capable of carrying nuclear warheads, that's just crazy. So that was what escalated the conflict even further.
Wow. Just as a side question, because Elon Musk once said this in an interview that realistically, if you set up drones with like facial recognition cameras, which just about like every iPhone has, um, and told them to swarm a building and to look out for a certain face, and you just have to put, little bits of C4 on each and every drone and just have them swarm people. Now, like knowing what you know now about drone tech and all the stuff that you've worked on, is that an actual possibility or is that just some sci-fi movie bullshit?
I think it's a very real possibility. The reason being, okay, so let's put drones for a second. Let's put drones aside. You've seen these US built or Israel built, I'm not sure, but we've seen these missiles being fired that can do precision strikes such that a car in the middle of a traffic, only the occupants are killed. Not just that, there are these missiles. I don't know what they're called. They don't have an explosive. They have like shrapnel. It's not even shrapnel. It's like something like a Wolverine claws. Those steel
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
blades that blast out in all the directions and only kill people in that precise area. So there were these attacks. I don't remember, was it Hamas leaders or was it something else? They killed this guy in the middle of a road in traffic, where it landed not just on the car but where he was sitting in the car, and only the occupants were injured. Literally no other damage in that vicinity. So we already have technology that is precise enough. Now, if you look at so while I was getting into this drone tech stuff, now obviously I'm not in the drone business. I'm in the business of creating something that can perform cyber attacks on its own. Now, you decide to put it on a drone or you decide to put it on something else, it's up to you. So I still had to look at like what can carry this. So for a while, I deep dived into drone stuff, and obviously, the right now the place you want to look at for drone warfare is Russia, Ukraine. There's this great guy on Twitter. His name is Grandpa Roy. I think it's Grandpa Roy 2 is his username. I'm not sure. You might have to look him up. He posts all these OSINT footages of Russia, Ukraine drone warfare. So there's a few different kinds of drones they are using. One is so if you can you go to his Twitter page, I'll show you. So they're using fiber optic cables. So there's a
Oh yeah.
spool of fiber optic cable attached to the drone, and you can just control that. So even if there's drone jamming in place, it doesn't matter because the signals are being you know placed through the fiber optic cable. And the way they use them is they place them next to, like on a roadside, and they wait for an ambush. So once a military convoy comes in, they launch the drones and they attack the right spot on the tank to make it blow up, or tank or a personnel carrier. One of these types is like, so they also built, so there are these supply lines that are critical. So what the Russians and the Ukrainians are doing is they are building nets. So the entire road is covered by nets. So there's literally like a tent kind of net on three directions, left, right, and top, all the way entire road to their supply line. Ukraine is using these. unmanned vehicles, very small, like like RC cars kind of stuff, and then it carries all the ammunition that they want to supply, so that they're not risking people in the convoy that are supplying these ammunitions. Now, for drone tech, we've seen FPV drones being used. So when the war started, Russia, Ukraine, they started using these small DJI drones. They just improvised to put a small charge on it, like 100 gram, 200 gram, shaped charge. Shaped charge is basically one that will blow out in one direction. So you face it on the front so that you know who it's going to hit, and they can literally hit one person only, like within the range of like radius of 10 meters, I guess. That's how precise that has become. Um, the second thing is these drones, as they got more and more sophisticated, these days what you're looking at is these edge computers like Nvidia Jetson. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
Raspberry Pi, but it also has ML capabilities because it has compute on itself.
Mm-hmm.
They are putting this on drones and letting it decide what target to hit. So it's semi autonomous. So it learns over time what military targets to hit, and it hits them automatically. So that's crazy. I mean, you just let the drone have a brain and it decides who to hit, when to hit. So that has definitely been quite an advancement, which is, it's going to happen. I mean, drones being controlled. So the threshold is, so Anduril is also working on stuff like this, and the pushback is you don't want a computer having a finger on the trigger. That's where you want a human in the loop kind of thing. Like you want an operator to decide when to make the kill. That's the one thing that military folks don't want, is letting computers decide when, who, and how to kill. They just want to use it, maybe let it have some brain of its own to fly in GPS denied environments. But when it comes to actually hitting the targets, they want to supply the information on where and exactly who to hit. But as technology progresses, we are coming to a place where these systems are going to decide on their own when to intercept something. Like air defense is one example where it's already happening. Like you are having these to reduce the response time. You already have these technologies that shoot down drones or missiles on their own without any human intervention to have like a very short response time. This is going to come into place with drone tech and stuff. Now, the one that you talked about, facial recognition, yes, it's very much possible. Um, and precision strikes is something we've already seen, so that is definitely possible as well. Uh, mm, Elon Musk obviously has been very pro drones because he even posted something like, you don't need F-16s, you just need drones. Not true. Both have their own use cases. I disagree with that because you know you can't use a drone to go in and do a big strike. Unmanned fighter jets is something Anduril and some other companies are working on. So it's literally a whole fighter jet that just flies on its own. Even India is building one of those. These are something they call, I think, uh, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically like companion. So if a fighter jet is flying in the air, it has another smaller fighter jet flies on its own. It goes before the fighter jet. It does reconnaissance. It can even hit things, and then the original fighter, like the manned fighter jet, can come in and do its thing. So it's like you can use it as a sacrifice, you can use it for reconnaissance, you can use it for performing more complex strikes, evading enemy air defense systems, that kind of stuff. So obviously these things are possible, and drones are going to be a big part of it. We recently saw a video of autonomous drones beating top three FPV pilots in the world. So it flight at the top speed was somewhere around 90 plus kilometers an hour. The drone is flying on its own in an indoor one of those obstacle courses.
Mm-hmm.
So those drones were flying in there on their own and beating all the top FPV pilots in the world. So that is crazy, obviously. So a lot of things are happening in drone tech, and it's only going to get the technology is only going to get better over time. And like there was this one strike they did. I don't know if it was using a drone or not. I think Israel did that. The guy, one of these Hamas leaders or someone, I really don't remember who it was. He used to come around 7 a.m. in his balcony to have a cup of coffee and just
Mm-hmm.
stand in the balcony. So they watched him for a few days and they were like, all right, strike approved. The next day, when he came in the balcony, they hit that part of the building and only he was killed, and there was no other floor or room that was damaged. and no explosives used. Like that's crazy stuff. Like from high up in the sky, you can have that level of precision strikes. It's crazy. I mean, I myself looked at, we were, so I'm thinking of this one thing. If you have a something called a high endurance drone. So high endurance means it can basically fly for longer hours, like
Mm-hmm.
7 8 hours. So that's something you would use for reconnaissance. These drones that can fly much higher, they need a small airstrip or a launch pad to launch because they need some push for the altitude. There are hybrid ones that have VTOL, so vertical takeoff and landing capabilities. But the ones that I'm talking about are the ones you launch from an airstrip. If you had the technology for, have you seen that interstellar docking scene, the famous scene where they dock to the endurance spaceship?
Oh yeah, I
So
love that
if
movie.
we can,
Great movie.
yeah, if we can figure out a way to have one of these high endurance drones carry 4 or 5 of these smaller drones. This Grand Paroy account that I talked about, he has posted one of these photos where Russians or Ukrainians, I don't know, in that war figured out this way to detach drones from a larger drone. So basically, you have a larger drone, a mothership basically, that carries multiple drones on itself as a mothership. And then it detaches those drones wherever the strikes are to happen. So imagine a larger drone carrying 4 of these FPV kamikaze style drones that can go and perform precision strikes. You load it up, you send it across the battlefield, you take it to 4 different places, you launch one of those drones from, at each point. This gives you the distance. So the FPV has a smaller battery, so it has smaller distance. But if you have a larger drone that can carry it, you have much more range, much more endurance basically. So China is working on one of these mothership drones that can carry a bunch of these and just launch them out. What I was looking at is just a smaller, a high endurance drone that can carry 4 of these micro scout drones with cyber attack capabilities. You just launch them where you want. They go and sit on top of a building, perform their reconnaissance. Then you send out the mothership again. It flies overhead, and this drone can come back and dock itself back to the mothership, and you can bring them back and just do the digital forensics and see what data it captured. So that is something I'm also looking at. There are obviously a lot of tech challenges to that, and actually figuring out the feasibility, if it can work, battery weight, environmental factors, if we can actually figure it out or not. And obviously the biggest part, the money to build it. If we can, it'll be a pretty interesting thing to just send out a large drone, drop 4 of the smaller drones at 4 different places, sits there, sniffs the network, carries out all kinds of cyber attacks, or just listening there, collecting information, doing reconnaissance. You send out the mothership back. It flies in the enemy region, comes to a lower altitude. The drone flies from the roof. The smaller drone flies from the roof, attaches itself back to the mothership, and it just like picking up kids from the school. It just comes back with all the smaller drones. So that's something that I've looked at. I found it very interesting. I don't know if I can actually figure it out or not.
Yeah, upon hearing all this, the human emotional side of me is like, man, the war is getting a lot more complicated, and the escalation of technology is concerning. But I have heard this take from some like Palantir representatives where they basically say like, look, at the end of the day, what helps with de-escalation is a bigger gun. Um,
Yeah, deterrence. Yeah.
exactly. So while yes, like a part of me can't help but be like, man, I understand that a lot of this stuff is really cool, but the advancement of this it's concerning. But another part of me is like, well, look, at the end of the day, this is going to happen whether people like it or not, and the history of the Earth as a whole, or just the history of humanity, is it's all just based on who has the bigger gun. And you
Yep.
know, like before the 1900s, it was very common for people to just go into a region, completely take it over, change the culture, conquer the people, rape the women, etc., etc. And now we're living in a world where the borders are more or less fixed, with like the exception of a few conflicts here and there. But human history has always been driven by the people that are able to conquer. And so now that we're dealing with this in a modern context, we're like, okay, well, look, we don't have to pick up like the clubs or the bats or anything like that. We're not cavemen. Now we're fighting in a much more sophisticated way. And yes, there's reason to be concerned about it. But at the end of the day, in the arms of like peaceful nations, or at least nations that aren't going around and being imperialist, this technology is actually, well, at the end of the day, if you look at the entire balance sheet of it all, I'd rather have robots fighting than people. Um,
Yep.
and if that's what it comes down to, like, war is an ugly thing. So obviously, anybody would agree. But with this kind of conflict, like, is this not the better alternative to just have machines like fight it out? Because, like, look, it's nice and all that I'm over here, that I'm an entire ocean away from that part of the world, where certain pockets of it, like the Middle East, they just can't stop fighting. Like I have the privilege of just being able to go home and sleep at night without hearing bombs flying in the air or air raid sirens or anything like that. Because that's a reality for people that live in those regions day in and day out. Like the fact that you live in a place where like there have been multiple terrorist attacks, as you said. Like I can't fathom that happening on my country's soil. It's not a shared reality that I have. um this kind of stuff, I can see why, at least like to the small extent that I can, like from your perspective, why it's not just some crazy outlandish thing, but this makes sense.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why you'll see Indians, being very finding themselves very relatable with Israel, for example. Like you'll see a lot of Indians supporting Israel. People are confused, like why is India so supportive of Israel? It's because we understand what it's like to be surrounded by nations who have within them people who just want to capture our land or just kill people basis on of religion or something else. And the thing about deterrence is, if you need to so I find Israel very interesting because the whole, if you look at the history of the Holocaust and the oppression of Jews and all that, you'll see that once they were settled in Israel, like you'll find the stereotypes of the Jewish people are very rich, very smart, in places where they are in power or influence. The reason for that being is because of oppression. It has pushed them towards, and there's a lot of geographical factor to it as there's a big factor to it as well. Is
Hmm.
because they are surrounded by countries who are constantly trying to do something or the other to gain a bunch of land. Now, this incentivizes you to have military strength, to have a stronger economy. I think India is in a similar place. It has been for a while, but now it has become a much more extensive. Is that we are now surrounded by unstable nations. Sri Lanka on the south end of India,
Hmm.
they had a recent, an economic crisis,
Oh yeah.
almost civil war-like situation. Bangladesh has obviously had multiple civil wars now. Um, Pakistan is constantly trying to push infiltrate using terrorists and proxy groups into India. They've occupied a bunch of land. We've already had land disputes and smaller confrontations with the Chinese army on this side. They've
Oh yeah, I've
captured a
seen
bunch
the
of land
footage. I've
in
seen I've
Nepal.
seen the cell phone footage where they're
Yeah,
fighting with fucking like sticks and whatnot on the border.
sticks. Yeah,
Yeah, I've seen
yep.
that.
So, so there's all these happening, and still we are one of the fastest growing economies in the world. And when there's this one conspiracy theory, which is because Apple moved its this thing to production to India, China instigated the Pakistan and India tensions again to portray India as as an unstable place for business. So that is also another front that we have to fight on, which I believe that India has lagged a lot, is PR. We need to have a better image. All you find on Twitter is racist stuff like people shitting on the streets and you know unhygienic street food. Well, it's not really the reality if you live in India. I mean, it's much better than what most of these folks show it as. And the sad thing is, many of these accounts are either funded by Pakistan or China. that are being racist towards India or trying to portray India in a negative light. Like I don't know if it reaches your sphere or not. For me, it's like every other day I'm seeing something on my timeline where a big account is being doxed as actually Pakistani or Chinese or funded by one of those to propagate stuff against India. So there is a concerted like a coordinated effort to show India as an unstable place for larger businesses, which is not true. Sure, we have our faults, but for business, it's a good place. And that is one of the conspiracy theories that is out there is China pushed the tensions so that it, India can be portrayed as negative for business, especially because Apple shifted and that was a big, and then you had the US sanctions that led to this whole breakdown of the Chinese manufacturing aspect where they were literally selling parts for cheap and they started pushing TikToks and Instagram reels to sell these manufacturing parts
Oh
for
yeah.
cheap because they knew the sanctions were hurting them a lot. So that is also another angle that we have to look at. My belief is that India being in the place that it has to rise in its military capabilities. I think India really needs a defense tech push, which is why I'm working on it. And I'm now starting to encourage people to, if you are in IT, if you are in tech, any kind of tech, you should be working on critical stuff, not food delivery apps or the Uber for pets. That's not something you need to be working on. You need to be working on stuff that actually matters. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. We are now much more in a reality where the neighbors are not really feeling very good about us. So we need to be able to defend ourselves, and the best way to do is uh, technology will push everything. It will give you good defense. It will give you a good economy. It will give you a good PR. Technology is the one thing that can take on a bunch of challenges. If you are able to push technological innovation, it will bring prosperity on all fronts. So that is my thesis and that's what I'm working on, and that is the way out here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the propaganda push, I've yeah, like it's a meme that India, especially on like 4chan, um, you got designated shitting streets and like all this other stuff, and there's there's sides to that where, on one hand, it's like that's definitely not all of India, but from even our last conversation, from what you've told me, it's uh it's one of those things that if it was improved, it would, especially like in the regions where it's most affected, like whether it's the riverways or like the quality of water, the quality of air. I remember seeing during COVID comparisons of certain parts of India when like the factories were shut down, you could actually see the sky versus when they were running at their peak and it's just all this smog. Um, if India was able to develop in that way, where like that's not nearly as big of a problem as it is now, there's so much that can be unlocked with that. I mean, it just reminds me of that. I think it was that in Singapore that that leader they had. I think it was Lee Kuan Yew. I think his name is,
Yep.
where he made it a priority when he came into power. One of the things that he first instilled in his people was a spirit of trying to make the public service more efficient. And one of the things that they did was they installed air conditioners in all of like the government offices. So at the least, the people that rely on this infrastructure, whether it's to get a new driver's license, a passport, library card, whatever, at least that function of society was not affected by the heat and the climate. And so people could actually work efficiently. And that was one of the things that he did intentionally to make sure that the nation was operating at like maximum efficiency. And I think that those issues lie in every nation. I mean, here in Canada, like a big part of it is that we have so many government regulations and restrictions that just get in the way of progress when we have like, I think we have like the third largest oil reserves in the world, um, which is nuts because like they love using quote unquote green energy here and EVs and all this stuff, when in reality, like a good chunk of the year we're spent in like -20 temperatures where those EVs become fucking useless. And
Yeah.
and the salt and everything we use to clear the roads just completely, like, just absolutely destroys those vehicles. But there's just all these different, like, little details that if they are prioritized, it could actually improve efficiency of a nation to such a greater extent that allows it to make it like the next leap forward. And I think that, like as you said, like, yeah, okay, sure, there's a stereotype about India, but uh, I'm sure there's a little bit of truth to that. Where like if some of these things were fixed, like so many more uh, options or like routes to develop all this new technology and material sciences, um, and just modernize the landscape, it would help so much more. You know, instead of, like you said, just like working on delivery food apps or like all the scam call centers or anything like that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's pretty much like you mentioned about the Singapore situation. You need someone who will bring about radical change. And my take on this issue has been the same for a long time now. It requires a cultural change. It requires a cultural shift. Um, you need so you know how we talked about Japan a little bit. You know how they have this culture of kindness and being
Mm-hmm.
polite and that kind of stuff, like being silent in public transport. Why? Because discipline, politeness, that is ingrained in the culture. If you look at India as a whole, we just have so many, like, you can travel 100 kilometers and have a different language or at least a different dialect or an accent. That's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Like, we have like about more than, like, I don't know, 15 or 20 official language. We have thousands of dialects. Like, there's hundreds of actual languages. 22 of or 20 of them, I think, are official languages. And so there's so many cultures. It's like a mixture of so many cultures. So it's you need to find a few unifying values, and you have to ingrain them into the culture. And then bottom up, you can build the infrastructure and public services or whatever it is that you want to build. In the meantime, there's other issues like bureaucracy, brain drain is under corruption is there. Brain drain is a huge issue. I mean, some of the top companies in the world, like most of the top companies in the world, why is it that their top engineers are Indian? Why is it that their top engineers are, top executives are Indian? Why didn't they stay in India and build something here? Is one,
Mm-hmm.
like, every single person on my core team right now is going to a different country. Just imagine that. Like, two of the smartest people I know, who I've worked very closely with and are probably the top hackers in India, and they're like 22, 23, are going to US and Germany. One is going to Carnegie Mellon, other is going to some fancy university in Germany that I don't know but has a great research program. Why is that? We need to look at that. We need to figure out what it is that is driving this brain drain, such a large number. I mean, it's not news that every single large corporation has some of the top minds, that those companies are Indian. So we obviously have the talent that we need. It's just not staying here. Why? If I had the chance and the money and the family situation that would allow me to go somewhere else, right now, the same problem that I'm facing with VCs, if I went to, I don't know, San Francisco and tried to build what I'm building here, I'm pretty sure I'd find whatever funding I'm looking for in a blink, like that. Why? Because there are stronger ecosystems. The same is with education. Like, apart from the famous IITs, which are very competitive to get into, obviously, there are
Mm-hmm.
not a lot of universities that have great research programs that you'd want to apply at if you were one of the smartest brain in the country. So you end up going to other countries, and then you find that their lifestyle is 100 times better. People treat each other 100 times better, and you just like that culture, and you just stay there. You end up staying there. Like, the quality of life is better. The I don't know, the public services are better. Transportation is better. Everything is better there. So you realize that, I'd rather have a family here than, back in India. So we need to change those situations, and changing those situations require retaining those smart minds and allowing them an ecosystem that fosters that innovation. So it's like a deadlock. Like, you need to figure out how to retain those minds, and to retain those minds, you need to give them the right incentives, which are also the challenges that you're trying to solve by retaining those minds. So, but I think next 20 years are very crucial for India. we have finally arrived at the international stage of things in terms of economy, in terms of company, corporate, in terms of military. After the military strikes, there have been like 15 countries that are interested in buying our missiles, our air defense systems. So that is happening. I think defense sector is one of the it will grow very fast now. We'll be leading defense exports in the next 50 years. That's for sure. Like that, I'm very confident on that. Given that the government doesn't mess it up, as long as they do their thing right, whatever governments are going to come in the future, if they do it right, we're going to be very ahead in defense tech. So there are challenges, but I'm very positive on those being solved.
Yeah, absolutely, and I know exactly what you mean. In Canada here, like we have a running joke that like one of our top exports is engineers from the University of Waterloo. Like it's one of the best universities in Canada for engineering. I think it's like number one. And the moment that they see what the salary that's offered in San Francisco, they flock to there. And I don't blame them. I absolutely do not blame them. They're just looking out for their own interests. But yeah, we have a similar issue where Canadian talent that could be used to foster uh, Canadian businesses and create like new industries is going elsewhere just because they 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 have the opportunity to. And it's a real problem. Like I've seen it be talked in not just like people that are working in like code development and apps and all that, but even in the crypto space. Like I've hung around some of the people that have organizations here in the city, and the story that I always come away with is that like they're trying to just plant the flag and get this movement started to create this ecosystem because the government is not facilitating this growth. So they find that they have to make up for that by creating all these incentives, by creating all these, not like think tanks, but just orgs where people can meet and interact with VCs and create this growth because it's not getting built otherwise. So they're taking it upon themselves. And it's very strange to see that because you would think that like a nation with leaders aligned to a single objective of our nation's success would have figured this out and would have created the right incentive structure. But I guess they're just busy doing whatever the fuck it is that they're doing. Um, that it's not a priority for them. And it's really mystifying because we're seeing our greatest minds go elsewhere. Meanwhile, the same issues that are plaguing every single person here in this country like keep going on, and things just keep going, in the same kind of pattern, in the same holding pattern. And it's as you said, like the next 20 years for India matters. It's like, yeah, I feel like that's the same thing for Canada. We're at a precipice where it's like, okay, well, how many people are we willing to sacrifice? How many people are we willing to let go before we realize, okay, there's actually a problem. Like there's an issue with retaining talent. And if you have an opportunity to be a digital nomad, why would you stay in a country like Canada? I mean, like one of the top streamers in the world, he had this like freak out live on stream. This guy by the name of XQC, he lives in Quebec, which is even more heavily taxed than where I live, and he makes like millions every month, like easily, from doing his streaming. And he had a crash out where he's like, "Why the fuck am I paying all these taxes? Why do I like bother buying a fucking McLaren if my street with gated neighborhoods has fucking potholes? Like, like where's the money going?"
That's a good point. I mean, yeah, I'm sending you a user on X. You can open it. But yeah, the tax point is also pretty interesting. I just started reading this other book, so I'm currently like educating myself on geopolitics and international relations and economics and stuff. Yeah, this account, by the way, before we get into that, this account is like, so ye theek karke dikhao means show me if you can fix this, is something like that, loosely translated. So people got frustrated on Twitter. People got frustrated with like corrupt politicians and bureaucrats. and poor infrastructure. So they started this hashtag and just started sharing pictures of really horrible infrastructure, and then just tagging all the responsible people and just making it go viral. Every single post going viral, and then obviously the people had to come and fix it. So now we are seeing like large scale action across the country because of this, just this one Twitter account that is constantly posting bad, like horrible photos where potholes and dirt and like mud everywhere or stuff like that. Yeah, I see garbage everywhere. I probably shouldn't be showing this here, but yeah, it's reality. So this is how badly things have been going, and this is how people are pushing for a change. It's like we are tired of all this. We're tired of the corruption. We're tired of all this, and now we're going to take things in our own hands. We don't care. We're just going to name and shame you until you fix it. It's
Yeah,
like
no,
once
that's
these
awesome.
started, yeah, once these started hitting the national media, suddenly out of nowhere, it just started getting fixed. New streets are being built. Trash is being cleared. Rivers are being cleaned. New infrastructure is being built. Why? Because now they either do this or they lose their office. So they have to address it. And especially it's monsoon right now, so you'll have all kinds of roads and water logging, roads breaking down, that kind of stuff. So I guess it was a perfect moment for this movement to start.
No, that's great. That's great to see. Like citizens actually taking it upon themselves to name and shame this stuff because like yeah, absolutely. Like what else are my tax dollars going to? Like
Yeah,
I
and we don't
yeah.
just want the city to be good. We also want these rural areas. Like we want the whole country to be good enough. Like we don't want just like where the tourists are coming in or where the rich are living, and those are the good roads and those are the good infrastructure. We want it across the country. So that's what you're seeing. You're seeing these rural areas. You're seeing these places that are remote, maybe parts of the city that are not really visited a lot, and that's what you're seeing here. In the larger the wealthy areas or maybe the more touristy places, they're probably much better. Like that doesn't mean you just let it go. And about taxation, what I was saying is I started reading because I don't know anything about economics. I picked this book up called Economics in One Lesson by Henry Hazlitt. Probably that's the name. So he talks about how we look at so when the parliament is debating whether or not to use taxpayer money for this whatever scheme or whatever public work they are doing, let's say building housing, they see it as this housing will help X number of people, so this money should go there, but they don't see what that money could have been used for had it remained in the hands of the taxpayer. So that is a very interesting thing. Like if you take money from someone, you are only counting, you're only looking at the benefits of where this money will be used. You're not looking at what you have deprived the taxpayer of, where if had it been in their hands, they would have used it and pushed it into the economy as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing that like that I've come to realize about uh taxation and where that goes. At the end of the day, the amount of hours that you spend at your job, that is taken out of the total hours of your life, however many there are. So any amount of government waste or expenditure where there shouldn't be any money spent at all is not just like stealing money as like a dollar figure, like if there's like a scandal that government spends like such and such million on like works of art or whatever. It's like that. It's not the million, and the number doesn't matter. What matters is the amount of time that people spend of their finite time on this planet that could have been spent literally doing anything else was wasted because somebody got greedy or somebody wanted more on their pension or wanted to award their friends with a contract or what have you, uh, because of some people's decisions. It's not that your money was taken from you, it's your time. And that is absolutely the most valuable thing that you have on this planet. Like, and it, it takes you into your like late 20s or 30s to realize that and to start like actually prioritizing what you spend your time on because now you realize it's limited. But At the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. And that's great to hear that you guys that there's this campaign of people trying to hold these people accountable, because as it stands right now, like the modern political process is not really set up for people to uh, to be represented by the people that say they represent them. I mean, we kind of take them at their word and hope that they have our best intentions in mind. But it's like, yeah, like any amount of incentives is just going to make them bend over backwards and want to look out for their self interest. And it's interesting that you say that about that exchange between like a government social policy saying like, oh yeah, we want to provide this kind of service to people, we want to do this, we want to do that. Well, in order to do that, we need to tax people. And when in reality, that money could have actually gone to something more useful. Like here in Canada, we had this dental program where they were essentially forcing dentists to charge certain amounts for like basic like cleanings and maintenance and all that. And on one hand, it seemed like a good idea because it's like, oh yeah, well now when you go to the dentist, now there's like a max cap on how much they can charge you for certain procedures. Okay, sure. On the face of it, that seems like a decent idea. But then when you look at it, it's like, okay, but then that just means that now they can't compete in the open marketplace. Now they can't actually change their prices based on the quality of their service. And now that everyone has a flat fee that they can charge for these services, they don't have to improve them. There's no incentive because the government will cover it. So like why bother? There's no growth. There's nothing that actually is made that's new or exciting. It stagnates creativity.
And the funny thing is, like, this is not new. The concept of, subsidizing things or putting in regulations to control the prices, we know that this does not work. Like, there is a reason capitalism is what has been able to lift people, from very dire poverty out into a better circumstance. And with its flaws, it's still one of the, most um, sustainable methods of economy, is because it works. And even though we know that this is not going to work, using emotions as the convincing factor, somehow politicians keep doing that. I mean, in India, it's the socialism is crazy. Our constitution says, like a few decades back, I don't know how long ago it was put into the constitution was amended to say that we are a socialist state. Before that, it was not there. So apparently we are a socialist state, and we uh, that just doesn't work. I don't know. In the long run, it doesn't work. Shorter terms, like, sure, if there's been, like, for example, if there's a forest fire, you obviously want the government to figure out a way to help those victims.
Hmm.
If there's an extenuating circumstance, you want government intervention to smooth things out. But just to say that, we are going to, you know like you said, cap the prices on how much someone can charge for a dental this thing. Well, what if I want the best dentist in the entire country?
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure, like, the one I would have gotten had there been, like, you can just charge as much as you want, versus the one I'm going to get because the prices are capped. There's going to be a big difference on that. Like, it's just the truth. I mean, if I were a dentist, and if the government was limiting how much I can charge for a procedure, and if I was literally the best dentist in the entire country, I'm not going to stay there. I'm going to go to a country that's going to let me charge $1 million for the same procedure if my government wants me to charge $5,000. Obviously, that's the case. So you are disincentivizing innovation and, good quality services by putting a cap. It just doesn't work. Like, you cannot just regulate the market like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And even like the crazier thing that I learned quite recently, um, which I still have a hard time understanding, is that our some of our agriculture industries, especially the milk industry or the dairy industry rather, they actually have uh, a limit on how much they can produce in terms of like product in order to fix the prices. And this is something that happens nationwide, um, on certain levels where during COVID, there was a farmer that was getting fed up with this because the problem with the quota that the government set was that any excess amount that is made had to be dumped. So he
Dumped
like
where?
it just in the ground.
Seriously? Like you
I
don't export, you don't do it, you just dump it in the ground. You don't use it for making some other product or anything.
yeah, I will show you. There's a famous video of this Canada dairy farmer. Yeah, here it is. It didn't even take that much work to find. He basically goes on this monologue where he's standing in his farm. And he's like, yeah, I'm sick and tired of these laws. This is ridiculous. Like we're living in a time where in Canada, uh, like look, he literally just has a hose unplugged, just dumping milk into the ground.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What?
Like, yeah. He was talking about this like during COVID, where we had like record amount of people going to food banks, and he is forced by the government to dump this milk.
Like this would have been, I mean, I'm thinking about it from like what would happen if this were in India. Like just to give you some context, we have, for example, a state that I live in. We have this company named Amul, 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 that supplies good quality, really good quality milk products across the country. It's a cooperative. Meaning, so what they do is they don't own cows. The farmers own cows, and wherever their plants are, they have this app and they have this agreement. A farmer can register himself or herself at their company, and then every day fresh milk, whatever you get from your cows, you just go and deliver it to their plant. They package it, they sell it, and they give you a good amount for the milk that you give them. And like they turn it into paneer, like which is like something like cottage cheese or yogurt or ice creams or whatever, because they build all these products and they source these to get the milk. They source it from farmers directly. So it's not like you are going to a private company or having to sell your own milk. You can just, if you want, you can just go to these and deposit whatever milk you have that day. And for that, you'll get paid on a monthly basis. Like whatever amount of, like whatever liters of milk you gave them,
Hmm.
they'll give you money for it. Like how much ever you can contribute. And you just get paid from the app, like at the end of the month. And you can track your earnings and you can just see what all is going on. And like if you said, I mean, India has like a lot of dairy product consumption. We have a lot of it in all kinds of formats, in desserts, in this clarified butter, which is ghee, milk, buttermilk, curd. It's consumed extensively. Like the numbers, if you look at them, it would be crazy high. So you have these other options of ways of selling this produce. But like if you made a law, like you just have to throw it into the ground, you would see a government change so fast because we are primarily still probably an agrarian country, if I'm not wrong. So like you would see like the state government or whoever made the law get changed. So like you would see protests like the same afternoon. If you announce this in the morning, you'd see like people outside your office and like the same afternoon. Like it's crazy. Like I cannot even think about uh, throwing away good food just because the government told you to. Like it can't. I mean, no reason this guy is so pissed. I mean, I can understand why he's so pissed. No wonder.
Yeah, and it's not something that I knew growing up, and it's been like this policy. It's not like because it came from this recent government, like under Trudeau. Like, no, this has been a thing that's been happening for decades now. In fact, it's a major issue for uh, the U.S. dairy farmers because even though we have this really 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 tight relationship in terms of trade and we rely on them heavily for it, um, they're from my understanding, like a lot of American dairy companies are essentially barred from doing business in Canada because uh, they can produce a product at the same, if not better quality, at a much cheaper rate because they don't have the same constraints on their market as we do. That if their products were to flood our shelves, they would completely wipe out the dairy industry. Like the whole reason that they have this law system set up is to quote unquote protect the farmers. Um, it just it doesn't make any sense. When I first learned about this, it's as you said, I was genuinely surprised that like people were not out in the street protesting about this, because like I said, like in the last few years, our our general food banks uh have seen high record like visits in years that they've been around for. um and that's very concerning. Like that's a signal. That's one of those signals where like you look at the economy and you're like, look, it doesn't matter how well the S&P is doing if the people can't fucking go to the food shelter and get basic amenities like milk or eggs or what have you. Like that's a major problem. Your people are, they're dealing with hunger, with starvation. Like that's not it's not really anything that would take a genius to figure out. And here we have this law that prevents competition. Um and it's just it's all sorts of confusing, but there's so many like interested parties in this that are making money off of it because you're artificially inflating the price of the market. um that I guess it doesn't matter. So it's very strange. I really hope that more and more people wake up to it. um I don't think that many people know, just because it's not a common news story. Like now, actually, funnily enough, like I know I said that thing about Trump earlier, where like it's weird how the administration is placing all this pressure internationally, but this law that they have right now, I think it's called supply and management. Um, Trump is actually making it a sticking point in the negotiations with Canada to force us to reconsider that law and to allow more US businesses to come into Canada and do more business, so that like there's more competition. And good. Like I'm all for it. Please do. Like I don't like paying so much for my food. I would like to pay a lot less for it if I can.
I mean, the fact that you can. So recently, the transport minister of India, not recently, some time back. I mean, like any minister, he has his good and he has his bad. But he said that we'll curb self-driving vehicles because a lot of people rely on driving as a job, as a source of their income. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that has to be the stupidest statement for a political figure to make. Like, either you've not done your analysis, or you're just being deliberately like pandering to your vote base or whatever. Because to stifle innovation just from the perspective of, hey, but this will lead to a lot of jobs. Well, if you look at history, like the history of innovation from that lens, cars would not have built, let alone like if the same drivers that whose job you're worried about, the cars that they drive would not have built if you looked at the manufacturing of cars from the same lens. Like if you had said that, oh, but so many people rely on horses as their livelihood, we can't just have cars. They'll get so many people out of business. Well, then you'd never have had cars, and now you're using the same logic for, I don't know, self-driving. So it just doesn't work, and especially the export thing. Like if you just to uh, now, if there was an active attempt of someone from the outside trying to uh, manipulate the pricing or your economy by making you rely on their, like I think someone was I don't remember where it was, might have been on Joe Rogan or somewhere. Someone was talking about how China gives these subsidies on manufacturing so that US business will go to China for manufacturing.
Mm-hmm.
In that way they can cripple their economy whenever needed, whereas every single, like there was this argument that was made, which is every single ship that is being built in China for commercial use, so these yachts and cruise ships and cargo ships, they are built actually with a military standard. I don't know if I think it was China, might have been Russia. I think it was China, that they are built with a military standard. Why? Because they want readiness to be able to convert those ships into military, so that the government can one day say, "Hey, we are at war. We are going to commandeer this vessel, like all of these vessels. You need to give us all your ships, and we are going to turn them into military ships." So, like, while they are, if that was the case, fine, you have justification to put some kind of regulation till you are able to drive down prices in your own country. But that's still like a very far-fetched justification for just saying, you know what, we're not going to let other countries do business here because they can do it cheaper. Well, if they can do it cheaper, then you need to figure out a way to make it cheaper here. I mean, what have you been doing so far?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, and as much as I would love to continue, I think I'm gonna have to
Yeah, it must be
wind.
late for you though.
Yeah, it's getting to 4 a.m. and I gotta wake up tomorrow
Oh
for
wow.
another podcast for my job. So yeah, listen, that story that you told about the hack, yeah, that's something short of incredible, man. I'm genuinely surprised that like we didn't meet earlier to discuss it, but I get it. You know, there's a lot of eyes on you, and there's a lot of moving pieces to it. But I really do appreciate you coming on to talk about it because that is I'm gonna be thinking that about it for a while, man. That's crazy. That is nothing short of crazy, and I realize I keep reusing the same words, but like what the fuck, man? Um, insane. I can't believe that that amount of evidence and like information came from just like a crowdfunding effort where you posted a tweet with a bug bounty and then all of a sudden you just had access to this whole network of insider info on a foreign state that if taken to the next level could have like that would have made like international headlines and who knows what else would have happened. But yeah, man, hats off to you and the team that worked on that. That is nothing short of incredible. I don't know of any other example in like my recent memory where I've not only heard of that thing, but like I know somebody proximal to it. Like that that's fucking crazy, man. You guys did a hell of a job.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it was. I mean, I still like. I don't think I've processed what all has happened. I mean, I've had moments of it, like after I got a few calls from people who were worried about us. Like, I did take a few minutes off, like think about okay, what just happened here. But it was. I mean, I am kind of like. I seek thrill sometimes, but not publicly. So this has definitely been quite an experience. I would have loved to continue that, but obviously there was a ceasefire, and fortunately, no more lives were lost, and then this was not going anywhere, so we didn't continue. Yeah, it has definitely been quite interesting to know the actual power of social media and the internet. And another thing that we were woken up to a weird reality was that when we had this happening, we had Pakistani hackers claiming that they took down our 70% of our electric grid for many hours. None of it was true. There was not a single compromise on any electric grid across the country. We verified it from a lot of sources. That was just fake claim that was being propagated through Pakistani handles. And so we tried to get eyeballs on this, what we had done. And we approached a bunch of news stations first. And the response we got was a bit weird because they didn't want to cover it for some reason. And the same news stations that didn't want to cover it later turned out to be funded by some weird forces and are now currently banned in India. So turns out we
Wow.
had hit something that we didn't know what it was. And then we realized, okay, this now makes sense. I mean, so I'm trying not to name it, but the people who know, they definitely know. It was a big story recently that they were banned in India on Twitter and everywhere else. So
Wow.
yeah, definitely. So so there was an active effort going on to not cover what we were doing and similar things that were happening. So yeah, that was definitely interesting to see like how the media is being manipulated from the back.
Yeah, that's a crazy story, man. And the fact that it caused such a fundamental pivot in your life to the point where you're now you're bootstrapping a defense tech company, um, and actually making it a reality. That is, yeah, that's quite the transition. I don't even know what to make of it. That's crazy how you just went all in on that idea, essentially blacklisted yourself from that community for years or for however long, um, in exchange for building something that aligns with your values and something that you believe in. And like I said multiple times on this podcast, like I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't know who's right or who's wrong. Um, it's been great to just hear your perspective on it, and yeah, it's just been a hell of a like of an instruction on just how crazy some of these things can be. I mean, you're talking about your own personal reaction to a global event that made headlines around the world has now led you to this point where you're actually like making something tangible to make sure something like that can't happen again. Um, and you have your own reasons for it, and you don't have to justify that to anyone else, and you believe what you believe. But just on its own as a story, man, that is yeah, it's incredible, man. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you come up with in the future. I really do hope that um, you guys are able to, as a nation, foment more of that kind of spirit of getting rid of the brain drain, focusing on fixing your neighborhoods and all that, and leading your country to a better place. Because fundamentally, like that's a dream that we all share as like working class people. Like we just want like we just want to go home to our families and have a good time and make sure the garbage gets picked up at on on time, and the right people go to jail, and that we live with some kind of sense of justice and shared ideals. Um, and it's been interesting to see this progression. I've only known you like maybe for about a year, and even the stuff that you told me about like all the cybersecurity experience was one level to it, and now you've just taken it to a whole other thing. Um, so as a spectator, man, like that's amazing. I'm really glad to hear that that you've taken a lot of this in stride, that you're embracing it.
First of all, thanks a lot for the kind words, and I'm obviously looking forward to more of our conversations. And it has definitely been a wild ride, and I don't think I've talked about this publicly a lot. But now that we have, this is in the history books. Now this is going to be a record that's going to stay, and I have no intentions of deleting those tweets. And I hope you never delete this podcast episode. So this is definitely going to be there forever out in the cyberspace. So yeah, let's see what we are able to build and where we go. Future is quite uncertain, but definitely we'll be working on some cool stuff. And I hope you continue your podcast and have your Twitter account back soon. And I spoke with Mackenzie once recently, and we are ready to wait, do a whole campaign of getting you unmanned on Twitter. We can use everyone who has been your follower, and then we can just start a hashtag or something. I'm pretty sure we can make at least a small wave that can reach the teams at X, and maybe even Elon Musk. You never know, and we can get it fixed.
Yeah, that would be great. And I do appreciate yourself and Mackenzie and everyone else that has spoken out on my behalf. Um, because fundamentally, like all I want to get back to, it's not even like the shit posting or like any of the people that I used to talk to. It's just the fact that I get to have conversations like this and shed light on some of these stories. Um, because sometimes you just stumble upon one of them, like this one, that is it's hard to find the words for it, but it's history being made right in front of you. Um, so yeah, no, I share your sentiment there. I'm looking forward to see what happens with it in the future. I'm definitely going to keep recording more of these episodes. So yeah, would definitely love to have you on again in the future to see what you're going to come up with. But yeah, thank you, man. I really do appreciate you making the time to come on today. It's been a pleasure. It's like every single time that we record now, the stakes just get raised even higher. So I'm I'm excited, but also a little worried. see what the next episode is gonna be. But no, all jokes
Maybe we'll
aside,
do
man.
one when I'm in jail. Yeah, one
Yeah,
from jail.
maybe. Maybe. No, man, look, um my whole take on it is you're a crazy motherfucker for what you did, and that is it's really cool that you're able to live in a country where you can do stuff like that, and there's enough guardrails in place that makes it so that you're not in some Guantanamo Bay getting fucking getting
Or ignorance. I mean, you know,
yeah.
they
Yeah.
just don't know or they just don't care. I mean, it's a guy who is doing some stuff. Who cares? You've got bigger
Yeah.
problems to deal with. Billions of people. I mean, sure, this happens once in a while. Who cares?
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's their perspective. But no, man, it's been a thrill. I'm really looking forward to having you on next. And yeah, I do appreciate the support from you and everyone else, and getting me back on Twitter. So yeah, man, thanks again. It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate your insight here. Your journey is, man, one of a kind. Like I said, I don't know anyone else in my life that is this like proximal to um, global events and actually making an impact on this level. So yeah, it's really been a pleasure to have you on. I really appreciate you making the time, and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode, man. I'm looking forward to see what you come
Sure.
up with.
Yeah, now I have this pressure. I need to have something even crazier than this. So it's going to be difficult to beat. Let's see. And thanks a lot for staying up late. I know it's late night there, so appreciate it really. Thanks a lot.
Oh, it's more than worth it, man. My mind has been blown like so many ways today. I can't believe the Twitter thread is still up. That's a whole fucking thing. Yeah, I just, you know what? I can't wait to like to tell people about this podcast once I finish recording and editing it, because oh, they're not gonna believe me. But yeah, man. We'll just close it off here. I appreciate you coming on, man. Thanks.
Sure thing. And just scroll up and you'll find this other tweet with a flight radar screenshot. Yeah, just to close it out, you can just take a look. Not on that thread, like in the highlights. Yeah, we didn't talk about it, which is good. I don't want to get in trouble. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, I
The
saw
one
it
that we talked
earlier.
about. Yeah.
Yeah, the about the flight landing in Pakistan.
Yeah, so the suspicions of US base being in Pakistan. So that was crazy.
Huh. Interesting. Department of Energy. That's weird. What are they doing there?
No comments.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, yeah. We'll close it off with that, man, for another episode. Yeah. Thank you
Sure,
for coming on. I really appreciate you making the
thanks a
time.
lot. Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
Okay, and we're out.